fuck out of bed, bitch. Go. Get up, again, they got go. Time to wake up, bitch, get up. Get up, get up.
Purpose of Neuralink is to create a high bandwidth interface to the brain such that we can be symbiotic with AI.
What would you like best case scenario?
I think best case scenario we effectively merge with AI.
This idea of transhumanism. So when you hear someone like Klaus Schwab, for example, talk about the fourth industrial revolution, that it's a merging, he says, of our digital and biological selves, this is essentially what they're talking about.
What the fourth industrial revolution will lead to is a fusion of our physical, our digital, and our biological identities.
We're going to be part of AI. We're going to have all that capability inside ourselves. Artificial intelligence and human beings combined to create something that's more capable.
Ray Kurzweil is a guy I've talked about on the show before. He is now Google's director of engineering.
Joining us now to discuss Jeffrey Hinton. Jeffrey, thanks so much for joining us. So you left your job with Google in part because you say you want to focus solely on your concerns about AI. You've spoken out saying that AI could manipulate or possibly figure out a way to kill humans. How could it kill humans?
Well, eventually, if it gets to be much smarter than us, it'll be very good at manipulation because it will have learned that from us.
This OpenAI whistleblower, we can put this up on the screen. He was a former researcher at OpenAI turned whistleblower, and he has sadly been found dead in his apartment in San Francisco, according to authorities. They ruled his death to be a suicide.
The parents of Sushir Balaji say they don't believe their son committed suicide, and they'd like to have an outside agency investigate their son's death.
I actually don't think we're all going to go extinct. I think it's going to be great. I think we're like heading towards the best world ever.
Together, these world-leading technology giants are announcing the formation of Stargate. So put that name down in your books.
Thank you, Mr. President. We certainly couldn't do this without you.
The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video, every police officer is going to be supervised at all times. And the supervision will, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate person.
With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, you sure you can control the demon? Doesn't work out.
Good morning, John McAfee here. I am dissed constantly for using Gmail as my email system. Let me explain something to you. If you think you have any privacy whatsoever with an encrypted system, whether it's an email system like Proton Mail or an encrypted messaging system like Signal, you have no fucking privacy. Encryption was designed 35 years ago to prevent a man-in-the-middle attack, meaning someone between your transmission and your receipt. There's no man in the middle anymore. We don't need them. Your fucking smartphone is the surveillance device preferred by every government on the fucking planet. Do you know how easy it is to plant malware? Go on Pornhub. If you've been on Pornhub, someone is now listening to you. All you have to do is do a drive-by of a website, and it sets the download unauthorized applications flag. The first click, you now have malware that is doing two things: watching your inputs before they're encrypted and transmitting them, and reading the outputs after they are fucking encrypted, people. Encryption is a worthless piece of shit old technology that is being marketed as a safe system. There is no safety anymore. There is no privacy. I use Gmail for one reason. The last company that requires this fucking subpoena from a government in order to give them your information. And their lawyers have 30 fucking days to review the subpoena. 30 days is enough for me. I change my fucking email every 15 days. Wake up, people. You have no more privacy. You're being sold a fucking bill of goods which is worthless with encryption. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to The Independent Review, a weekly podcast where we bring you the latest from the world of independent journalism.
I want my money back. I'm down here drowning in your fat. You got me on my knees praying for everything you lack. I ain't afraid of you. I'm just a victim of your fear. You cower in your tower praying that I'll disappear. I got another plan, one that requires me to stand on the stage or in the street. Don't need no microphone to beat. And if you're in the song,
Welcome to the Independent Review, live on AM Wake Up on Rumble, Odyssey, Rockfin, and the Indie News Twitter stream. Let's get right into this first clip from Whitney, Webb, and Iain Davis.
Since Trump's 2024 election win, the rise of a particular clique of Silicon Valley CEOs and venture capitalists has been quite obvious, at least for anyone paying attention. The core of this clique are the most prominent members of the so-called PayPal mafia, whose rise to prominence in Silicon Valley was inextricably linked to their early executive roles at PayPal, the early fintech leader that quickly dollarized the internet in the name of creating a new world currency and consulted with every American three-letter agency they could get a meeting with prior to their launch. In Unlimited Hangout's first installment of this series, interrogating the political power of the PayPal mafia, entitled The PayPal Presidency, we examined this group's ambitions for healthcare and biotechnology and their efforts to guide and arguably subvert the Make America Healthy Again, or MAHA movement, toward policies and therapeutics that they ostensibly opposed during the COVID era. Today, we will be examining the philosophies and political theories that drive the most prominent members of this so-called mafia, namely Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, and how these are turning into concrete U.S. policies through the influence of Musk personally, as well as Thiel proteges like current Vice President J.D. Vance. Over the last 6 months, major efforts in media, both mainstream and allegedly independent, have sought to portray these wealthy billionaires as the quote-unquote counter-elites, arguing that they represent a major challenge to the elites that had run things prior to the U.S. 2024 election, while these so-called counter-elites, led by the PayPal mafia, have sought to establish themselves as significantly different, at least in cultural terms, as anti-woke, for example. Are their political ambitions and philosophies really functionally that different from those of the elites they have supposedly deposed? Are Thiel and Musk really libertarian-leaning and liberty-minded as they have claimed? What motivates them, and what would their ideal society look like? It's important we find out, because now more than ever, between their wealth and now obvious political power, they have the ability to shape our political realities in unprecedented ways. Joining me to discuss this and more is Iain Davis. Iain is an independent investigative journalist, contributor to Unlimited Hangout, and author of several books. He is from the UK, and his latest book is called The Manchester Attack. His recent two-part series published at Unlimited Hangout, The Dark MAGA GovCorp Technate, Parts 1 and 2, delve deep into the philosophy behind these would-be technocrats, many of them members of the PayPal mafia, and their house philosophers like Curtis Yarvin and Nick Land. Thanks for joining me today, Iain, and welcome back to Unlimited Hangout.
Oh, thank you very much, Whitney. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, as I noted just a minute ago, since the last U.S. election, there's been a good amount of spin claiming that the oligarchs now lined up behind Trump and his vice president, J.D. Vance, are counter-elites and somehow different from previous elites, who we have been told have now been cast out into the shadows by American voters. So what are your thoughts on this narrative regarding the so-called counter-elites?
Well, they're not counter elites. They're oligarchs in the the sense of the real sense of the word, as in someone that's converted immense wealth into political power and authority. That's clearly what they're doing. So I think it's fair to call them oligarchs. And if we think about how the kind of things that they're proposing in order to move America forward and make America great again, and certainly in doing so, obviously that has a massive impact around the world. There's it's the same kind of agenda that we're familiar with from perhaps the other side of the coin. You could say the sort of Schwabian side of the coin, in terms of rolling out top down controlled things like technocracy. I would say it's an operating system for a newly proposed kind of privatized model of government, which is pretty much the same as the kind of oligarchy control mechanism that is on the other side of the fence. If we think about perhaps traditionally people like George Soros and so forth, that people are kind of very wary of. And I think, in presenting themselves as these kind of opponents to the kind of overreach of kind of globalist oligarchy that American, certainly Republican voters were opposed to, and I think that's probably how that they've managed to kind of secure the political authority within the Trump administration to the extent that they have. It's precisely because they are supported by people who want to escape that kind of what they consider to be, restricting kind of globalist overreach. What they've done really is deliver exactly well. I say exactly the same. I think it's fair to say that what they're proposing in terms of what I've called we're going to go on to talk about something, the Dark Enlightenment, and also we're going to talk about how what technocracy really means. In proposing those kind of systems, what they are suggesting is arguably the worst form of top-down hierarchical control, oligarch control ever envisaged. So to say that people that obviously Republican voters have voted in opposition to that, what they've got is just about as bad as it could be.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that for sure. I really see, like I said in the intro just a minute ago, the only difference they seem to actually have is just sort of the cultural veneer they put over their ambitions, and they sort of cloak themselves in this, we're anti woke and all of these things, and that seems to be the only really major uh difference at a fundamental level. But I don't really think it really means anything. It sort of reminds me of how um Democrats and Republicans in the United States tend to differentiate themselves largely along cultural issues, whether that's abortion or gay rights. And, historically, that's sort of been the main way to successfully divide and conquer. And now you're having that sort of play out again. But the exact nature of the cultural issues has changed slightly and focused sort of on these um, DEI policies and other things. And, when Trump was elected and these counter elites had supposedly come in, there were reports of CEOs expressing relief because now they could finally say retarded at board meetings again. What a change. But as you noted, a lot of the actual change for the rest of us isn't going to be very significant in terms of what this supposed new crop of elites really has envisioned for the United States and more broadly the world. So you mentioned technocracy, of course, and I think myself and others have mentioned that word over the past few months, obviously yourself included. And so I think maybe it's a good opportunity to sort of maybe define what technocracy is and some of the connections of prominent figures today, like Elon Musk, to this particular ideology. So would you mind enlightening us, not darkly necessarily, but enlightening us with some uh maybe some definitions there?
Yeah, so first, I think it's important to point out that these people are very much on board with the idea of technocracy. So we had a tweet. It was in October 2024. Jeff Bezos, he posted to Musk, and he said, "The network state for Mars is being formed before our eyes." To which Musk replied, "The Mars technocracy." So in reference to the network state, that was comes out of a book, The Network State: How to Start a New Country, by Balaji I can't pronounce the guy's name, Srinivasan. And basically, that's we're seeing that come through in policy in the US in the form of, because what Srinivasan was suggesting was kind of zones of no regulation where entrepreneurs could, particularly tech entrepreneurs, would have a free hand to do whatever they want in these kind of an idea that has become
Mhm.
now within the Trump administration freedom cities.
I sort of understand it as special economic zones on steroids, where they would basically have sovereign power, and people that would live there would enter into agreements with the city as sort of like a private sector entity, and it would have its own like cryptocurrency and things like that.
Yeah, so that's the idea of this network state, how to start a new country. That's what he was talking about. So obviously, in Musk's mind, that means, what would be the way that would be managed, and how would that kind of administrative zone work? Well, then obviously Musk is saying a technocracy. And he further wrote that, I think something that he published in 2019, he made a comment where he said, we're accelerating Starship development to build the Martian technocracy. So he's always there. He's openly spoke about how much he wants to construct a technocracy. But obviously, by putting it in the context of Mars, you're supposed to think, well, he's not in favor of constructing one on Earth. But obviously, that is clearly what they are doing. So I think most people misunderstand what technocracy is. I think, most people, when you say the word technocracy, they equate it to what you could call kind of technocratic governance. So this idea that you have experts that make policy decisions. So, for example, if we think about what happened during COVID-19, you've got people like Fauci, who's a quote expert in medical matters that is seen, and I think that's important. The public are introduced to this idea of experts making decisions, and rather than necessarily elected politicians. And when you speak to most people about technocracy, if they've got any kind of concept of what it is, that's normally what they think it is. But technocracy is much more than that. That is part of it, but it's much more than that. It is a system, like an operating system, if you like, for the complete reconfiguration of society. In fact, it does away with society entirely, and what it creates instead is what it calls a social mechanism, which it came out of the progressive era in the 1930s. It was a movement that was headed by people like Howard Scott. Other people, certainly people with oligarch interests, people like Brzezinski and the Rockefellers, were looking at that idea, and the notion was that you would break society apart completely. You would create a social mechanism based on what it called a sequence of functions. So you'd have the economic function, the transport function, the industrial function. This would be overseen by a continental control. So you would do away with all nation states. You would create something called a technate on a continental scale, and that would be overseen by a tiny, small group of people, no more than 100 people, called continental control. And in charge of them, they would appoint from within their ranks an overall CEO type king, that would be called the continental director. So, but the level of the degree of social control and behavioral control that is inherent to technocracy is unimaginable. It's not something that most people could easily relate to, because it is more or less pretty unbelievable. That they talk about us as human animals to be programmed so that we can perform our function. Where we go, what we do, what we eat will be entirely controlled by a new form of monetary system and surveillance. That monetary system would enable surveillance. Now, in the 1930s, presenting that possible kind of the scale of the bureaucracy suggested by that was not workable in the 1930s, when the original technocrats and the 40s, and shortly, briefly in the post-war period, it wasn't a feasible thing. How would you manage a system like that on even a national scale, if we just think about the US, let alone a continental scale? But, obviously, oligarchs were looking at that with interest and thinking, well, there may come a time, and certainly Brzezinski's the technotronic era was very much talking about the possibility of technology enabling such a kind of administrative system to function. They've kept an eye on it. They've followed it followed it over the years. I would very much suggest that technocracy has been trialed to a great extent in China, and now they're proceeding to roll it out everywhere. And obviously, modern computer technology, AI in particular, and if we combine that with digital ID and digital currency, then the possibility of actually establishing technocracy is now a feasible prospect. And so it's no surprise really that we've got key technocrats like, and I think he is a key technocrat, Musk, so influential now in a US administration.
Well, I think it might be fair to refer to him as probably the first more or less formal technocrat at the executive level in the United States, someone that's kind of actively taking that role, in the sense that his role there is ostensibly to maximize efficiency, which, as you noted in your piece, this idea, the technocratic idea of the human animal, the goal was to uh, engineer the behavior of the human animals and the human animal masses, I guess, to maximize their efficiency. And in general, that is the ostensible goal of this Doge entity that he is heading. And obviously, on to that effect, of course, I think it's pretty clear that any critic of Doge is immediately being hit with claims like, "Oh, you must like then and be defending the corruption it's exposing." But frankly, in the case of the U.S., every time there's a spending bill, those spending bills are full of pork, right? They're full of all of these relatively openly corrupt and ridiculous expenditures that shouldn't be there, and it's kind of been a known thing that happens. So it would make sense that there is sort of pork, quote unquote, in the US government at large that either came from those spending bills or through those same types of, I would say, cronyist policies. And that is what Elon Musk is exposing. And people are focusing so much on the exposure that they're not really looking at what is being implemented in its place or done with the data that Musk now has relatively open access to. And given that Musk and the PayPal mafia at large are very intimately involved with mass surveillance infrastructure of the United States, particularly as it relates to the military and national security agencies, that probably should be talked about. And also the fact that Doge is seeking to sort of replace a lot of workers, because tens and thousands of workers are being laid off, and a lot of the goal seems to be to replace a lot of them, with AI and algorithms. But ultimately, that has a centralizing power effect, because whoever controls those algorithms, it's not would have the power of those 10,000, those 20,000 people in the organization employing it, right? Whoever develops and maintains that algorithm kind of has more power, right? At least that's sort of how I see it. So a lot of things are happening right now. Changes are happening at the public policy level, all under the name of efficiency. And Elon Musk has kind of made himself the poster boy for this, if you will. But I would argue that even more important these days, well, not necessarily more important, but definitely equally important to sort of this technocratic role that he's now playing in the US government or in the Trump administration, is also the social engineering taking place on the large content platform he now holds, which is now owned by his AI company, which is interesting. And you noted in your piece, Iain, that technocracy can also be defined briefly as the science of social engineering. So we have the idea of engineering human animals to maximize their efficiency, that they're programmable automatons. And so, you can see where the role of government would be in a technocratic system to do that programming. But obviously, social engineering is a key part of that. And because we don't quite live in a technate dominated world yet, those are kind of separate spheres of engineering. So
yeah, I mean, I think if you look at what the Doge is, it is technocracy personified, really, because the note, as you quite rightly said, the idea of technocracy and something that is common to both technocracy and what we're going to talk about, the neo-reactionary movement, is this idea that there are technological solutions for all problems. So all problems, social, political, economic, there are technological solutions, and that the only thing that you need to do in order to solve these kinds of problems is apply the right technology or more technology. Technological kind of decision making and this kind of very mechanistic kind of AI controlled, computer controlled decision making is elevated, is said to be elevated above everything else. So everything else is done through, all decisions are made in a kind of dispassionate, logical way, and that's the best way forward for humanity, as long as we obey the algorithms.
Now, let's take a look at this clip from the David Knight Show.
Not just the digital currencies that are being set there, not just the graft and corruption of the Trump family, of his cabinet that is there and the rest of it. But take a look at this. Apple is quietly working on an AI agent to replicate a human doctor. And of course, they're also working on incorporating this into their health app as well. I wonder if they're going to call this agent Agent Smith. But again, the AI agents, as I was talking about this the other day, that's where there's going to be a lot of change. You're going to hear that a great deal. AI agents have a lot of autonomy. You can give them a task and they can go out and do it. And if you combine AI with robotics, that is going to be an incredibly powerful thing. And those two technologies are converging very quickly. It's one of the reasons why the NVIDIA CEO is saying that you're going to have all these robots walking the street, because they will have more intelligence and more autonomy and independence than the chatbots do. But going back to Apple's secret health program here, they said the idea is to have a revamped health app that will collect all sorts of health metrics. And it'll have major emphasis on tracking food. Now, we've seen that from all these different health apps. We've had phone apps like that and watch apps like that have been there for a long time. But the key thing about this is going to be just how much more information it gets from you. And so, a lot of people are saying, well, the problem with using this for health is that it hallucinates and all the rest of the stuff. But that's not really the issue. And when we look at how all these different things are coming together, you've got, as I said before, the executive for Figure talking about how these AI robots driven by AI agents are about to hit us in a massive way. The way he described it, he said 2025 is going to be the iPhone moment for humanoid robots. Great. A multi-trillion-dollar market for humanoid robots. Robots to cook your meals, clean your house, do your laundry, tutor your kids, drive your car, cut your grass, take care of your elderly parents, repair the plumbing. It'll help you across the street. And they'll shoot you in the head if they tell it to, right? I mean, seriously. When we look at all this stuff, I've made that comment about all these DARPA projects for the longest time. So, oh, look, it's just here to help veterans who have PTSD, or it's here to help a little old lady cross the street, or we're going to put a chip in your brain so that you can see again, or we're going to repair the paralysis or whatever. And then what? Then what are these people going to do with it? That's the question. So Adcock, who is the founder of Figure, that's that robotic company that is very impressive, but talks with a California dude accent. So there's an iPhone moment happening with humanoids right now. He said his robots are already working on the production line in BMW's Spartanburg factory. He said to succeed at this, you have to do three things that have never been done before. And you have to get all three of them right within the next 5 years, or you are going to fail in the robotics industry. So they got a window, and actually, like I said before, the NVIDIA CEO said before 5 years is up. Streets are going to be filled with robots. And so he said, here's the 3 things that you're going to do. First thing, you got to build hardware for humanoids that's incredibly complex that can never fail. Oh, that's good. I've seen a lot of technology that can never fail. Haven't you, Travis? I've never seen any technology that doesn't fail. It's all fallible because it's made by fallible people. Okay, so I think we just, maybe that's good news. Maybe if these things do fail, maybe they will have kind of a Segway moment, you know, when George Bush fell off the Segway. Everybody's like, I don't know. Well, we'll see. It can never fail. And it's got to work at human speeds with human range of motion. The second thing you have is a neural net problem, not a control systems problem. You can't code your way out of this problem. You need to have a robot that can ingest human-like data through a neural net and has to be able to imitate what humans do. You know, these health watches and other things that's going to be a big help, right? Because what Apple is talking about in their new app is having its AI monitoring what you're doing and watching everything these people are about. This is one of the things that is so creepy about it. Not only are they hell-bent on complete totalitarian control of us and our society, not only do they want to own everything, but they're also kind of disgusting voyeurs, you know, who want to just watch everything that we're doing just to learn from us. Isn't that creepy? So he said, so you need to have a robot that can ingest human-like data through a neural net and has the ability to imitate what humans do. Humanoid robots are not like arms bolted to a factory table. None of those robots have AI. And then finally, the third problem. Third problem is that you have to generalize. He says this is the holy grail of robotics. To have a robot look at something it's never seen before or heard through speech and to be able to tell a robot how to do it and then to have it be able to complete that task end to end with one neural net. And that's kind of what they demonstrated when they gave those robots a task and put a bunch of stuff in them they hadn't identified before and have to figure out what they do with it. He said, if you can solve those 3 things, then you're in the right decade. And you're at the iPhone moment. And we can confidently say that we have solved or are making major progress on all 3 problems. In other words, when he talks about an iPhone moment, he's talking about this technology being ubiquitous everywhere we see it. He says if we had 100,000 robots today that all worked, our 2 commercial customers would take them all. But he said we're not able to do that because we haven't scaled up the supply chains yet, and it's still early. He said we could sign on 50 Fortune 100 companies by the weekend. We are bombarded by demand. Listen to what he had to say. Okay, so they got demand for robots. Why? Because he said the supply of humans is going down. They designed that as well, folks. Everything they did was a design for that. Socially, they've conditioned us to not want families and children. Physically, they have harmed our bodies with the drugs and the food additives and other things like that. And they have engaged in mass culling of people as well with their wars and their vaccines. There is unbounded demand. We could ship 1 million robots this month if they were all ready to go. And this is why I say they don't need immigrants, except for the divide and conquer aspect of it. It's the only reason.
Next, we take a look at this clip from this week's Union of the Unwanted episode.
Right. Oh, that's okay. To me, it was kind of just weird that they're just letting me upload things. So I think maybe Rumble could be a threat. Maybe, you know, they're struggling. Maybe, you know, they're looking at, you know, graphs and ones and zeros and they're like, hey, we got to do something because, you know, in the future it doesn't look good.
Rumble's
Maybe it's a
biggest
trap,
problem.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
I
it.
feel like it's a trap, and they're like expanding the window so that we can all sync ourselves when they next employ like thought police, you know, attack version X.
Mousetrap.
I agree.
Get us all to walk into it.
It's a trap.
I agree. I think also Rumble is the same as YouTube. It's just the conservative wing of now YouTube, and this is the golden age, so they're going to give a reprieve and make people think and then clamp down again.
Well, you know, Rumble's biggest problem is the same thing Rockfin ran into. If you just go hard, if you're just grabbing all the banned people, you're going to lose everybody. And So it's like if you don't get those cat videos and all that stuff, it's just an echo chamber, and you're just gonna be talking to the same people, and you're never gonna grow it. You need to do those normal, prank shows. They got that bikini show, which is great, but I guess I've heard on the streets. I don't know anything about that, but if you don't do any normal stuff, you're
How
never
about
gonna.
if you do a show in a bikini?
I mean,
Now
you'll
you're
probably
talking.
get more views.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen all the girls like in gaming, streaming, and all this stuff? Like they're just like pretty girls who are wearing, just revealing clothes, and they suck at video games, but they've kind of hacked.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. We're just watching, and they're just sucking at video games.
The more technology we get, the more monkey we become. It's just unbelievable. I've never felt society being like, I have this weird thing where like everyone's getting dumber. I'm like, well, I think that people just are saturated in useless knowledge. I think the data has changed. So they're like, hey, name me all 5 presidents, and these chicks are like, well, I mean, there's just different data. I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like because of shows like ours, we've seen more people have more data from what I think is most important on what is really going on than ever before.
Well, they're recirculating our data from years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
I want to share that I did a Rumble 2 weeks ago about Arcturus and the solar flares. They put it on private without just mysteriously. And then this Friday, I just energetically felt the comments were off, and they just decided to turn off the comments halfway in the show.
Yeah, I mean, it gets like, Twitter, I love Twitter. There's sometimes I feel like Twitter is the greatest town square we've had, where like you introduce some topic and you instantly find out what everybody thinks. But there's just so many bots now, dude, just creating chaos between people and fighting with each other that you really just got to ignore them.
Well,
I'm more censored now on Twitter than I was when Dorsey was in charge.
Yeah, I guess it's like,
How about
what are
you
you
guys?
talking about?
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They let me back on Twitter the day after Trump's inauguration. I mean, it's kind of the same sort of thing Ricky had, but with Twitter.
Just talk about the Roman Empire, so nobody cares about banning me for
Nobody
anything.
messes with you. Yeah, you're.
Yeah,
smart.
I had
You
Elon
right
share me
there.
finally last week.
Oh, that's great.
That's where some cash, they say.
What was the
One
tweet?
share.
What
big
was the
bucks.
tweet that they shared, Jeremy?
It was about the tallest Roman emperor, Maximinus Thrax, and it was about how his leadership style was basically what screwed him. So he ended up sharing that tweet.
Dude, you beat me. I was gonna write the same thing.
I'm a little gun shy though about uploading old content, man. I have some real bangers that are on Rumble only that I didn't put on YouTube.
Try it, and if they give you a strike, take it right back down.
Don't ask Alana Freeland to come on your show, for God's sake. You'll get a strike immediately. You start talking about the space fence and shit like that. Get
Well,
those
that's
sweet
what I was
ladies on
talking about.
Celeste Solum, too. Same thing. You get these sweet ladies. You start talking about FEMA or the space fence, and it's like,
You're basically like a lot of people on the show. You're old school dangerous, and they don't forget. I mean, I know Ricky got his thing back, which probably we should be asking for Ricky's compromise right
He's
now.
controlled
If he's
up.
been, if he's been approached by Big Soda to promote.
Yeah, did you have to shill for Big Soda to get your YouTube channel back?
Yeah, I did. I had to.
I sure do love this new Coke.
He had to get MAGA on his back too. He's got a
Oh.
back tattoo now.
I am fighting. It's so crazy. The fight that's going on right now with Mega and that, they just cannot understand that arresting people for vandalism and charging them with domestic terrorism is a slippery slope. Now, I'm not talking about blowing up cars and stuff. Obviously, that's taking it to another level. Or if it's even real, pulling some old lady out of her car. That's not, to me, keying cars. Keying cars is vandalism. And I don't see it as terrorism. And they're just going, oh, if it's politically motivated, it's terrorism. I go, that's a slippery slope, man. If you start labeling anything political that goes against the state as terrorism, we're all in fucking trouble.
Yeah.
Well, it's even worse than that too, legally, because thanks to the Patriot Act, we're the homeland, and this is a battlefield. And if you engage in that, you could be labeled as a domestic terrorist, which isn't just some sort of pejorative, it's also a legal term. And that means that you can be disappeared with no rights, black bagged, taken to Guantanamo Bay, held without being able to speak to an attorney, and that's the reality of it. So it's more than just telling, let's not try and tie these people up with domestic terror. It's like, you be very careful with that, man, because
there should be no.
So how do you handle the violence then?
Race,
from one side?
domestic terrorism. It
How
should
do you
just be
violence
there are
is
laws.
one thing.
There
What
are
we're
laws.
What we're talking about is keying a car. I mean, I don't like it. I don't think it's right, but we're talking about keying a car.
But there are penalties for that.
Right. But is it domestic terrorism?
No, there shouldn't be any distinctions at all for any of that, whether it's keying a car or strapping a bomb to you. Like, all of those things are illegal, and there are processes for all of them. That's not
I agree.
new.
I can agree
There shouldn't
with that.
be race-based. There shouldn't be hate stuff. There shouldn't be terrorism. It
Exactly.
should all be, do you have the mens rea? Did you do the actus reus? And then there are.
It's this
or
thing
is it
I'm
a
talking
crime?
about right now, which is what I've learned from Twitter, which is good fascism, bad fascism. And this notion that there's people that they're cool with fascism as long as you're going after the people you don't like, and they're willing to completely sacrifice all of their morals and their beliefs if it means going after the bad people. But the minute that comes back the other way, then it's bad fascism. And I'm
That's
like,
how we got into Iraq. Like, that's how, it's ideas like that got us into Iraq and Afghanistan. And it's like, well, this is the justified war. It's a good one. It's the thought process can't change based on who's in power, right? Either it's right or it's wrong. It's terrorism or it's not. I think it's like, it can go way too far, man. Like, you're talking about keying a car.
Have they really been doing that with key in the cars? Like,
yeah, I mean,
just
you
fear-mongering?
see
Is it just,
fucking
like,
cat
exaggeration?
turd out there. Oh, look at this domestic terrorism here. Who's a chick trying to keep people trans out of the bathroom in Washington, D.C.? She saw them, they were dancing. She's like, look at these domestic terrorism. And it's a talking point given out to everybody. And they're all just labeled domestic terrorism, because this is the game. Because the game is to get you to be okay with them, like Charlie said, just fucking black bagging people.
Well,
it's pendulum, right? We're always worried about the pendulum going too far to the other side. I mean, James,
But that was scripted. I mean, the writing was
Fucking
on the
problem.
wall that was going to happen, in my opinion.
The problem is the right's way better at doing crazy shit than the left is. The left is good at chaos, and the right is good at throwing black bags over people's heads and making them disappear.
It's my theory on that, like, everybody's racist, but the reason they hate white racism is because they're just the best at it. Like, they're just better at, like, comedy, racist comedy, and all that stuff. And that's why they get mad. I mean, everybody, it's like this whole thing now with anti-Semitism. They're like, hate is everywhere. I'm like, hate has always been everywhere. Now you're getting it, and you're a saggy diaper about it. It's like, dude, go back. I know comics who are working in Hollywood that were just like, yeah, I'm racist. I'm racist against white people. And they were like, yeah, dude, it's great. Ha, 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 ha. Here's a new job. And this is the whole thing. Everybody's getting it now. Monka?
I think that anti-Semitism thing is such a trap, and I realize what's happening right now. So the JFK reveals had tons of stuff about Israeli intelligence. Everybody's glomming onto that and retweeting it, whatever. I made a connection to something I haven't heard anybody else make a connection to. There are all these articles in the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if it's in other news about these law firms. Trump is going after all the big law firms for some reason or another that's supposed to be vindictive, whatever. But one by one, these law firms are making deals with Trump. So Paul Weiss, I think, said they would give $40 million of pro bono work. Another one, a big one, maybe Skadden Arps or whatever, $100 million of pro bono work if Trump leaves them alone. And both of them cited drafting anti-Semitism legislation free was going to be one of the things that they do. So A, they're going to get that stuff drafted free outside of the government and just install it. And the other thing is, if all the big law firms make these side deals with Trump, this is an old trick, none of them is going to be able to represent the resistance against that, the counter arguments. It's like if you're getting a divorce, go talk to all the divorce lawyers in your neighborhood, in your area, so that your spouse can't get representation. It conflicts them out. It's an old trick. So I feel like that's coming, like soon, that that has been a trap.
Now we jump to this clip from Rachel Blevins and her guest Patrick Henningsen.
Me now to discuss is Patrick Henningsen, a journalist, geopolitical analyst, and host of the 21st Century Wire. Patrick, thanks so much for taking the time to join me.
It's great to be with you, Rachel.
Now, I want to get into the latest here as we have the tensions between really the Trump administration and Iran soaring once again. You've got Trump openly threatening Tehran in an attempt to try to force them into what seems to be a version of the nuclear deal that he, of course, pulled the U.S. out of back in 2018. And now not only is the U.S. bombing Yemen, but the Pentagon also announced on Tuesday that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had ordered the deployment of an additional aircraft carrier and more U.S. assets to the Middle East. So how do you see the current tensions and what the Trump administration is really going for here?
No, they're clearly escalating. So they're planning for a long campaign, bombing Yemen, of course, for the Yemenis, for the Ansar Allah, aka the Houthis. They're used to it. They've been basically under bombardment from the U.S. proxies, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, for the better part of a decade. That war that was begun by Barack Obama in March 2015. That's almost 10 years, almost to the day, last week, 10 years ago. So the Yemenis are prepared for that. But the U.S. is now trying to escalate to posture that they're going to launch an attack on Iran. And so this is where things are getting really kind of dicey now, because Donald Trump has threatened the Iranians. Basically, if you don't come to the table and negotiate a nuclear deal, we're going to strike you, a preemptive strike. Okay. Now, if you look at Trump's own nuclear doctrine, it includes low yield tactical nuclear weapons, ground penetrating bunker busters. So effectively, what is being said, which is not being discussed, is a preemptive nuclear strike on Iran. Okay, that's not a small thing. Okay, so why is this? Because, well, Israel wants the U.S. to make Iran negotiate not only its civilian nuclear power industry, but also their missile program. Okay, that's the back end of this that nobody's talking about. Obviously, that's what it is. There's no evidence that Iran has any nuclear weapons. They are a nuclear threshold state, which means that they have the potential, should they choose to assemble a nuclear weapon, and they can do so within weeks, or within a month, or within weeks probably. So, but they're not the only nuclear threshold state in the world. There's others that have the same capability, but the U.S. isn't threatening any of those countries. Okay, they're just threatening Iran. So this idea that somehow Iran is a threat to U.S. security is not true. The only perceived country that perceives them as a threat in the region, in realistic terms, is probably Israel. Okay, the Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf states, they're actually engaging in some kind of rapprochement brokered by China recently. So unless the U.S. preempts a war, then all of those Gulf states will become targets for an Iranian retaliation because they have U.S. bases in them. But as it stands, without the U.S. instigating a conflict, the Gulf states are fine with Iran. They want to have a stable and prosperous region. Everybody agrees on that except for one country, of course. So this is where it's at. So what does this mean in terms of, the United States? Is Trump really going to get anywhere with this type of approach? I don't think so, because there is hardly any example in history where this is basic game theory, by the way. If you study to be a diplomat or you're into negotiations, not real estate deals in Atlantic City, but treaties and things like that, real things, right? The business of nations, not the business of property developers in the tri-state area, okay, or golf courses in Florida. We're talking about bigger things here. And game theory shows, not suggests, shows that if a country is threatening another target country with collective punishment or violence or an attack, either at that moment or later down the road, the chances of them complying with whatever conditions are being imposed is almost zero. Okay, that's every single case study in history plus every theoretical model. And I had to study that for my postgraduate in international relations. That was required reading, basics. And every single person on the diplomatic corps of the last previous presidencies probably knew this as well. But this is a different kind of group of people now. These are people with no diplomatic experience who don't know anything of what I just explained to you, have no idea what I'm talking about. And they're in charge of making policy. And they think they can wing it and do it on the hoof, and everything's going to be fine because everyone fears America. That's basically the gunboat diplomacy. So they're trying to turn the clock back to 1920 and think that somehow this is going to be, the world's, this is not 1920. You have a number of other nuclear states. You have Iran itself is a capable, formidable military power with thousands of hypersonic missiles. And while the U.S. could do extreme damage to them, no doubt, with such an attack, Iran could also do damage to U.S. facilities in the region, U.S. allies in the region, and Israel itself. The question is, the political price that the U.S. will pay for that, both domestically and internationally, is that something that the Trump administration have factored in to their current posture? I'm not talking about the X's and O's of military force, nuclear weapons, advantages on in space and in the air and so forth. No, I'm talking about the political calculus, because that's part of that should be part of the calculation. If things go haywire in the region and the world descend into a bigger conflict, who's going to get blamed for it? Not the Iranians. It's going to be Donald Trump and the U.S., and that's how history will be written. If you think about how much hate people have for George W. Bush, how long ago was that? 20 years ago? Tony Blair and Bush are reviled by most of the global population as warmongering, war criminals, and deceitful people. They'll go down in history hated forever. And if you think about how bad that is, what Trump is stepping into is he will be hated that much times 10. That's his legacy. And that'll be the U.S. position. So the U.S. will then go into a different category internationally. They're already veering towards that sort of public enemy in the global community, but they'll really firmly be there. And then what happens at that point? Are we in a better, more stable, safer world? Or are we in a more dangerous, unstable, and not so prosperous planet at that point? And you need to think about these things.
Now we will jump to this clip from the Indie News Network with Reef and Indy.
Okay, but how the Trump administration sold out everything they claimed to stand for. And after calling for no new wars and free speech, the Trump administration is dropping bombs while destroying free speech domestically. Yeah. Oh yeah, and getting MAGA to turn around and cheer them on for destroying free speech. Cool. So, like he says, Trump and his admin came in claiming to oppose endless wars for the military-industrial complex and support free speech, just to do a 180 and drop bombs in the Middle East for Israel and do a major authoritarian crackdown on free speech. In this article, I'll explain how the Trump admin abandoned almost everything they claimed to believe in. So, from opposing war with Yemen to dropping bombs for Bibi, and he's got a nice little blurb and paragraph and receipts there about, insider source telling Netanyahu saying that Netanyahu had intended to sabotage the hostage release deal and never intend to move to stage 2 of the ceasefire, which we reported months ago. But okay, thanks, New York Times. Another Israeli source told the New York Times Israeli government was repeatedly violating the ceasefire agreement, which we also covered 900 times, while Hamas said that they were not. All right. Israel hasn't upheld its promises, but that Hamas has not violated the ceasefire agreement, according to Ma'ariv, another Israeli newspaper. Instead of putting the mild pressure that they reportedly put on Israel to accept the ceasefire deal in the first place back in January, the Trump administration backed Netanyahu's sabotage of it by approving a $3 billion arms sale to Israel. All about the Benjamins, baby.
Nice.
All right. Both Netanyahu and Franklin. That's kind of funny. Like I said, it's literally all about the Benjamins. All right. So this is, again, a long piece. He also then documents other pieces that from free speech champions to literally 1984. The Trump admin has consistently made freedom of speech and its preservation a main plank of its campaign promises. In fact, even earlier this month, Trump, of course, gaslightingly claimed that he stopped all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. Sure he did. The MAGA movement was correct that the Democrats, particularly under the Biden administration, were censorious. They created a disinformation governance board with a subdivision of the DHS that was intended to police the internet, which was headed by Nina Jankowicz, the so-called disinformation expert, who has spread every CIA lie from claiming Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation to whitewashing U.S.-backed neo-Nazis in Ukraine after the 2014 Maidan coup. She and I have had a run-in on Substack notes personally. That was kind of interesting. When I basically told her to go fuck herself. Yeah, I do that. The Twitter files leaks showed that the Democratic administration was using the intel agencies to censor everything from journalists opposed to the Ukraine proxy war to people questioning the official narrative around the safe and effective COVID-19. Very safe, very effective, right?
Yep.
Democrats in the House, such as Colin Allred, of course, he's a former Dallas Cowboy, so he's popular, defended this policy when it was revealed by claiming that the intel agencies were trying their best to find a way that their online discourse doesn't get people hurt or see our democracy undermined. He wet his pants. All right.
Who owned those Cowboys at one point?
That would Jared Jones still does. Jer Bear.
And
I don't know.
Wasn't what?
Tex
which
Schramm.
one is the Adelson?
Oh no, they own the Houston Rockets now.
That's what it was.
They even sent the IRS after Matt Taibbi, of course. You know, we know all this. Ritter, Democrats ranging from Walt. Again, so he's just laying out, look, yes, Democrats do that. However, all right, shortly after Trump claimed that he brought free speech back to America, his Health and Human Services Department, led by Booby, RFK Jr., put an order to halt federal funding for universities that didn't crack down on pro-Palestine protests. The move was a blatant violation.
Shmuley wouldn't know anything about that.
Right? The move was a blatant violation of the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has ruled multiple times, such as in the 1958 Spencer v. Randall case and the 1996 Legal Services Corp v. Velasquez case, that withholding government grants over political speech is a violation of the First Amendment. Scalia, I believe, was one of the majority decision writers in 96, by the way. The Trump admin went on to, maybe not, or was Scalia appointed by Bush Jr.? I don't remember. Sorry. I could be wrong. Trump admin went on to use ICE to arrest, of course, Mahmoud Khalil, a legal American resident and green card holder married to an American citizen, because he protests against the genocide in Gaza at Columbia University. It's a little bit more complicated than that. We're going to get to that in a second. They actually, it turns out, we're going after all the negotiators that were trying to get the people out of the buildings. Now they're going after them too. And I'm going to show you a video in a little while of one that did that they're doing that to now. The Trump admin did not accuse Khalil of any crime and has no proof that he has any connection to Hamas or any other group in the Middle East. As the Times noted, officials still have not accused him of having any contact with the terrorist group, taking direction from it, or providing material support to it. So just saying that you want Israel to stop murdering children is now enough to warrant disappearing. And we've covered this extensively the last couple of weeks, and we're going to get into it more in a little bit. But he sets up some of what we're going to talk about very nicely. The paper noted that the admin's rationale for arresting him was because protests that Mr. Khalil played a key part in were anti-Semitic, because they protested Israel, and created a hostile environment for Jewish students at Columbia, even though Jewish students were participating in the demonstration and the protest, and that the United States foreign policy includes combating anti-Semitism across the globe, except for Palestinians that are Semites too, and that Mr. Khalil's residencies in the nation undermines that policy objective. No, it doesn't. And the policy that undermines that policy objective is Israel murdering children, because if they stop doing that, all of these campus protests would stop. All of them. Stop killing Palestinian children, and all the kids go home. All the kids go back to their dorms. Very simple.
Here we have this clip from Hard Lens Media.
All right. Glenn Greenwald had to push back on Megyn Kelly, comparing pro-Palestinian organizers to a terror group. Now, listen. The crisis in Gaza is still ongoing and continuous. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's going to be peace anytime soon. And I am very worried about how a lot of protesters are being now lined up with maybe terrorists or criminals or anything of that nature. And the thing is, what worries me is what could happen to our First Amendment right for free speech, and also the right to protest and organize. And I think we have to remember that while it is very easy for everyone to say, oh, well, if you're part of this protest group, you're a bad guy. Maybe people just want the war to end. How does that sound? Maybe people just want conflict to end. Wouldn't that be a sight to see? Is that a bridge too far? Can we not have peace in our time? I would like to have peace in our time. I think it would work. But unfortunately, in this day and age where everything is hypercharged, everything is so aligned with everything across social media, I think we're forgetting that we have to separate people, and we cannot just align them all up, because as soon as we start saying that one group is this and this alone, all while ignoring the context, I fear we'll be driving into, flying into, walking into very dark territory that we cannot escape. So let's play this video here.
There's nothing unreasonable about saying being the spokesperson for an on-campus terror group means you violated your terms of staying here and your green card is getting revoked.
I think you're wildly mischaracterizing the point of this protest. I remember, very well in 2002, people who were opposed to the U.S. invasion of Iraq were told, oh, they were Saddam Hussein supporters, and they would say, no, we're not Saddam Hussein supporters. We just don't think the U.S. should invade Iraq. Same thing now. If you don't support financing Ukraine, you're told, oh, you're a Putin supporter. And you say, no, I'm not a Putin supporter. I just don't want the U.S. involved in this war.
That's a straw man.
Protests. No, it's not. I want the war in Gaza to end. I want the war in Ukraine to end. That doesn't mean I support any organization there or any politician or person in any of those two regions. I just want the war to end. I think this ridiculous war in Gaza has cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. It's forever going to scar the populace, and it will be a trauma that will be passed on to future generations. Then, of course, you had the same thing with this war in Ukraine. I remember everyone that was against the war in Ukraine, and still are, how they're being labeled as Putin puppets, or how they want Russia to take over everything and invade Europe. No, nobody wants World War III. Nobody wants to be nuked. And the way things are going with our economy and tariffs and everything else, and the fact that there is no ceasefire happening on either front in Gaza or in Ukraine, it's abundantly clear that maybe we are just, instead of running, we are joyfully skipping to the destruction of humanity, especially with the way the stock markets are falling down. Let's rewind this.
If you don't support financing Ukraine, you're told, oh, you're a Putin supporter. And you say, no, I'm not a Putin supporter. I just don't want the U.S. involved in this war.
That's a straw man.
These protests were about
That's a straw man.
Megan, because these protests were against
No one
the
who was
Israeli
out on the
war in
streets,
Gaza. They were not
bull.
defending Hamas.
They were
I just read
demanding
you-
that Colombia divest. They were demanding that Colombia. Did you
Exactly,
just
but
read
that's
that?
not
They
a
were demanding.
Hamas. That doesn't mean that you know the anti-Israel protesters modeled themselves after the student movements in the 1980s that were against the apartheid regime. The main demand of which was, we demand that you divest from apartheid South Africa.
Okay.
That's what these
Okay,
students are
but
demanding. That we
here's the
demand. That is
problem.
a peaceful
That's fine.
protest,
The
not a violent
American
one.
students, the American students cannot be deported for having done that, but someone here on a green card can be.
I want everyone to understand that this does set a dangerous precedent, though, because then when you have protesters also being confronted by ICE or other law enforcement officials wearing masks, especially if they wrote an op-ed, I mean, that does set something that we can't walk back from, because we all saw what happened with ICE, especially early in February of this year, where you had them rounding up criminals. Now, yes, look, I get it. Hey, look, criminals, bad guys who are hurting people. No, man, I don't like bad guys. I don't like criminals. I don't like people getting hurt. But then when you start expanding the list to go for nonviolent, okay, I get it. And look, Democrats are responsible for this migrant crisis because they kept on promoting sanctuary cities, even though sanctuary cities was a complete disaster. And now look where it's getting expanded to. Now protesters on a green card, on a visa. After that, what's next?
Next, we have this clip with Johnny Vedmore and Hrvoje Moric.
But it's being a fan of the world means that you want to be able to get around, and I don't think they want that anymore. I think we both realize that. But how inevitable do you think it is? I'd like to ask some questions about technology eventually. Talk about technology and technocracy eventually. Personally too, but how do you think it will develop? I'm starting to believe that technocratic globalism, a certain period of it, is inevitable, and I also know that everything that goes up must come down, and there's rise and falls to every single paradigm, has been all throughout history. Do you agree with that? Do you think that we are inevitably walking towards globalism? But how long do you think something like that will last?
Yeah, I mean that's the topic I'm most interested in, because I focus a lot on world government is my biggest interest, because I'm coming at this from as a Christian. So world government, globalism, plus the technocracy, the social credit, the algorithm ghetto, is my past guest Edwin Black calls it, and I'm always going back and forth. It's hard to gauge, but I think it is inevitable. I think God wins in the end. Christ, his second coming. So good wins in the end. I don't know when that is. Nobody does. So good wins in the end. But sometimes I think what they're trying to do is so insane, and at best they might succeed with. I don't know if you know the 1985 movie Brazil, where they'll, or Joe Allen, who's expert on transhumanism. He's got a great book, Dark Iain. Yeah, he says that it's basically going to be a mix between technocracy and idiocracy, like the movie Brazil. And so I kind of feel like that's the best they're going to get, because I mean, you look at the world, how things work, places like here in Mexico, so I think they are going to advance a certain amount of stuff, like a minimum of digital technocracy that is going to make our life painful. But I mean, you look again, using Mexico as an example, you've got natural, hurricanes and extreme heat and extreme cold and tsunamis and earthquakes, and which disrupt these precarious technological systems. I went to the People's Reset not long ago, and driving a couple hours to get there. And they want you to buy those tags so you don't pay for the toll, but half the time the tags don't scan, to open up the what do you call it, to let you pass. And the elevator at the hotel was not working. It's like not a lot of these things just don't work. And so, but they are advancing with things like digital ID. I last year I couldn't renew my debit card. It's still not renewed. It expired. And I went down to the bank and I used official government ID. I've done it many times before where I've renewed the same debit card with my US and Mexican passport. And this time they said, no, you can't. You got to do it with your Mexican voter card. And I never took one out because I don't vote. And I never took out well, and I never took out a Mexican voter card because I knew that the Mexican voter card it's the most complete identification document in Mexico. It's got more information than other documents, and that I knew it would be used as the basis for the digital ID. And here we are a couple months ago, they said you can only use your Mexican voter ID because when you get it from the government, they take your biometrics. And that same week, the UN reported that they want you to link your bank accounts to your digital ID. And so I was literally experiencing that here in Mexico. And I told the guy, I opened my account as an American. Can you renew it as an American? He's like, well, let's try. Give me your US passport. He's like, oh, but the system asks for your Mexican visa. I'm like, I don't have a Mexican visa because I'm a Mexican citizen. So it's really Kafkaesque. It's like, as a Mexican citizen, you have to use your Mexican voter ID. And now they're asking, they've got a population registry number that all of us have to have, foreigners or locals, to do business and stuff, or open bank accounts. Now this year they're mandating it to be biometric. The vehicle emissions tests, in the US, we've had that since I was a kid. You take your car every year to make sure it passes the vehicle emissions. That didn't exist in Mexico until 2 years ago. And so 2 years ago, I had to take my car to vehicle emissions here in Mexico. And if it doesn't pass the emissions, you can't drive your car. And I've actually seen green police here on the streets of Mexico give tickets to people who didn't, they can check your license plate and see that you didn't do the vehicle emissions and give you tickets. So I can give you many more examples of how they are succeeding, but I feel like it's going to be, Kafkaesque, really.
Now we take a look at this clip from last week's episode of The Third Rail with host Natureboy.
As you can see, his nostrils are like humans. They're facing down. Wow. One of them.
Not a very good hunter.
I think
That's-
Sasquatch is just a bunch of guys from the 60s that did folk music, tripped out and just got lost.
Something about it, man. So you think
They're
that
a bunch of black guys from the 60s that did folk music?
bunch of fucking rosters that let their hair grow too damn long, brother?
Tyreek Seeger. Bob Jenkins.
I don't know who the hell you are, man.
Yeah. There's so many names. Just wow.
Oh man.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you know my employee Chelsea, who I'm always talking about?
Yeah, shit.
So you want new topics, or you want to keep hanging on that one?
We can go to a new topic, sir.
Okay, cool. So
I gotta take Gomez out here
hang for
before
a
too
while.
long. Oh yeah, I got a couple of I should really, within the next 5-10 minutes, I should take Gomez out. But
well, let me draw a hat. I pulled them up and I had a few of them. I looked at it, so I was like, yeah, man, that ain't legit. I'm gonna do this shit. I'm gonna do it right. Oh, it's my turn. Oh, happy, joy. Okay, so I've got a few stories. There are actually a couple of them. What do I want to do first? Let's do the Egyptology since we're doing that. Let me copy a couple sites over here, and it's about the new discoveries in Egypt underneath the one of the pyramids. And
you got to pull up the Reese report on that, man.
Oh, really?
Greg Reese did.
That's a good video.
That's a very good video.
Greg Reese did a really good, like 5.5-minute presentation on that.
They aren't really new discoveries, though, are they?
They're from 2022.
New in terms of the technology that was used to prove it. Old in that it was posited for a very, very long time.
I wonder. I can't wait to hear what Dr. Joseph P. Farrell has to say about this.
Right.
I think Greg Reese has a hour-plus video on it.
Well,
An
on
hour, wow.
I brought up 2 articles here, and I was just doing research. One is that describes it. The other one tries to debunk it. And I found it interesting. I always like to look at all sides. So let me bring up the one that is from Turkey Today. I like foreign sources as opposed to American sources when it comes to stuff like this. So give me a second here. And this is for maybe the few people out there that haven't followed this story about what they discovered underneath the pyramids. But it is, if this is true, and everything I take with a grain of salt, this is a phenomenal discovery, and it also reinforces the view that I've had on the pyramids. They're never tombs. It's not a tomb of Khufu. When you look at the history of Egypt and you look at the pharaohs, there's certain characteristics with all pharaoh tombs. One, they're all in the Valley of the Kings. And 2, when you look inside of the tombs, they're very ornate. They have a lot of hieroglyphs and specific things that said this is a great king who is here. When you look at the Great Pyramid, there's none of that. There's a sarcophagus, but that's it. So because there's a sarcophagus, they automatically think that it's a tomb. But this is under not the big one, not the Khufu's. It's another one. And can you see the structures right here, how they go down? This right here really, if I'm going to say what the pyramids are, because, I'm not an expert here, I think they're more of an energy creation device to harness the natural scalar energy that exists all around us, that a lot of very powerful people do not want us to understand, because if we understand frequency and vibration and how to manipulate it, there's no need for oil unless you're going to make plastics out of it. But from what the story says is they discovered 8 large pillars, 643 meters deep. And then they sit on these large boxes and they have structures that go down as far as 2 kilometers. So I'm like, okay, that's the story that's going around the internet. So I'm like, okay, where is something debunking it? And let me share that screen for you. And there's some interesting language in it that makes me a little suspicious of the debunking article. But let me bring it up here, and maybe y'all can decide. Okay, this one. Let me see if I can get rid of it. No, I can't get rid of the ads. Okay. Here's the one from The National. Don't know what it is. It just popped up. Egyptologists question claims of hidden tunnels and chambers under Giza pyramids. Media reports of vast structures discovered beneath Khufu's tomb dismissed as completely wrong. So what this does is this goes in and it basically debunks these new discoveries. It says that the reports were based upon a paper published in October of 22 in the MDPI journal Remote Sensing. And the researchers were Filippo Biondi and Corrado Malinagra. I can't pronounce that. But they go through and, this is what made me very suspicious. They quoted Zahari. Okay. He is in charge of the pyramids. He is everything pyramids. He decides who goes where, what gets said, what gets discovered. And in it, he calls into question that one of the main things, it said that the technology that they used wasn't able to do deep penetration. And the software that was used, which produced these images, was made by one of the researchers, and nothing has been peer tested. So with that being said, what's y'all's opinion on this new discovery? Is it legit or is it a bunch of bullshit?
Well, Steve posted the Reese report there, a short Reese report
Yeah,
in the chat. I don't know. From what I gathered, it had been known that those things were actually there were things there, and for some reason the news came out now. That's what I gathered. I tend to go with Dr. Farrell, who has always said that they were energy production or even weapons, not tombs.
I'm along the same line.
Just like, I think now is the detail of it. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where it's like truth is always there, but science can now explain what's already been there. It's been a power source. It's been a source of energy. How? Well, we don't know. I guess we're learning more, but we know, it's like the cathedral thing. Like,
right. And there are pyramids all around the world. And and I'm sure we've all seen the aerial views that look like circuitry.
Yeah, ley lines. But it's obvious. I'm an engineer, right? I was in commo the first time, so I know electronics. First time in the Army, second time I was an engineer, more time as an engineer. And those pyramids are not tombs. They are some kind of a mechanical device, or and it leans towards frequency, as you say. My thing is that with this ground penetrating radar that they use to supposedly discover this stuff, we've had ground penetrating radar forever. I mean, when they did what was it, Jurassic Park? That's how they kind of introduced ground penetrating radar to discover the bones, and they 3D printed and he made a little horn thing, but we won't know unless we actually dig. And this is a historical site, so we can never dig there. So I don't know how we actually know unless we can do like kind of a mining exploration where we go down and then go over and verify that there's actually something there. And also, if we're talking about some advanced technology, let's say there's metal and alloys and stuff down there for this, whatever it is, how come the pyramids are made out of stone? So I'm kind of on either side of the issue is what I'm trying to say. I know.
How come the pyramids are made out of stone? Well, they're made out of conductive types of stone, quartz and things that layers over them, and then
that's true.
They say the point of it was covered with gold at one point.
It was. And then you see, and this is kind of interesting because you have the shape of the pyramid, and then you have these what are they called, like the Washington Monument, what do you call that thing, obelisk?
An obelisk.
They have these all over the place, and there are theories out there that those things transmitted power between each other, and there are hieroglyphs that suggest they had like some form of lighting that was electrical. So there's a lot of question there. I don't know. I would like to dig down and see it, but we can't do that.
Good luck.
Not to get graphic, but it's like what you just said. Everything's esoteric with these people. So it's everything's symbolic. So that's the penis of Osiris.
Yeah.
That's the phallus. You know what I'm saying? That's the energy giver, the life bringer, the all that, So I'm sure esoterically they transfer that in real life with some kind of energy giving,
Well, along with the of those, there's always a dome. So if you think about it just in Tesla terms, if you have two conductors, what's one conductor generally? It's a dome. What's the other one? It's a cathode or a rayo or whatever it is. So from an esoteric point, to bring it into a secular point, that in my brain is definitely an interesting idea. Is there a correlation between that, and did that make it into mythology, or were these ancient things actually ways to receive and transmit power, and there's a correlation between the dome and the obelisk?
going back to, like I said, I'm a Christian guy, and I subscribe to the Bible, of course. It's up to how you interpret it or whatever, but I believe that the flood happened. I believe that there was a civilization before. I think it was way more advanced than we're aware of.
I do too.
They maybe use different materials, so maybe those materials degraded over time. But heck, I could take my Chevy truck and park it out in the woods and it'll be gone in 100 years. It'll be rusted to nothing. So who knows? But I really do think that we talk about the Tower of Babel, right? Tower of Babel, if you want to call it that. We talk about the Atlantis. We talk about all this stuff. I really do believe that these monolithic structures survived that. And that's all we have. That's the last evidence we have that there was a great technological civilization that was wiped out. And then we kind of had to start from scratch. And think about it this way. One last point. Right now, we have dumbed ourselves down so bad because of technology that if we had like a solar flare, an EMP that knocked out the world's grid, we would go back to the Stone Age. And in 100 years, we wouldn't even need a flood or a fire. We would, in 100 years, 200 years, people would look back and say that our society today is a myth, that we didn't have computers and virtual reality and drivable cars and stuff like that. So just something to think about, food for thought.
That's like Genesis, man. You're going to Genesis. That's if those who get into that, like Enoch, the Book of Jasher, Jubilees, all this. It's like there was a time, however you want to say it, different cultures talk about this, before a flood, where there was a civilization of people linked to something greater than humans, some kind of watchers, if you will.
The Nephilim.
Well,
the giants.
The Nephilim was that production, exactly. They produced these demigods. There was a time where all this was happening, the mixing of genes. And what do we see now? CRISPR, DNA, all this stuff.
Next, we have this clip from yesterday's antiwar.com episode with host Dave DeCamp.
Story at the top of antiwar.com. Report says that Trump is preparing to bomb Iran with Israel. So the U.S. and Israel are currently planning to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities, an attack that could happen in a few weeks' time. And this was reported by the Daily Mail, specifically by the Daily Mail's columnist Dan Hodges. And Hodges is extremely pro-Israel. Sometimes I'm a little skeptical of the Daily Mail, but this appears, considering everything we've seen Trump do, the U.S. do in the Middle East in the last few weeks, we certainly are gearing up for an attack on Iran. And Hodges wrote this report while he was in Tel Aviv and cited Israeli political, diplomatic, and military sources who said that the U.S. and Israel are preparing to bomb Iran. He said the purpose of the strike would be to eradicate the threat posed by Iran's nuclear weapons program. But there's no evidence that Iran actually has a nuclear weapons program, and that's a fact recently confirmed by U.S. intel agencies in the annual threat assessment. So a senior Israeli diplomatic source told Hodges that Trump's presidency offers the best time to hit Iran. The official said, quote, "From Israel's perspective, with Trump in the White House, this represents the optimum moment to deal with Iran. There won't be a better chance," end quote. Trump recently threatened to bomb Iran if a nuclear deal is not reached, and he has reportedly given Tehran a 2-month deadline, which would end at the end of May. Iran responded to Trump by rejecting direct talks in the face of increasing U.S. pressure, but Tehran has offered to hold indirect negotiations. Axios reported on Wednesday that the White House is seriously considering Iran's offer for indirect talks, but is building up U.S. forces in the Middle East to prepare for an attack on the Islamic Republic. So that's another report saying that the U.S. is preparing an attack. It's also saying that the White House is considering the indirect talks. It says there's an internal debate in the White House between those who want to engage with the Iranians and those who would rather bomb Iran right away. The report says, quote, "If Trump decides the time is up, he will have a loaded gun at the ready," end quote. So these reports also are confirming that this U.S. military buildup we're seeing in the Middle East, which I think it's very clear that this is what it's about, but it's confirming that this military buildup, sending all the bombers, sending the additional aircraft carriers, other fighter jets, this is a buildup getting prepared for bombing Iran. It's not just a threat to Yemen. I mean, the U.S. is bombing Yemen every day, but it's not really about that. It's about threatening Iran and preparing to strike Iran. And Haaretz reported, by looking at the open source data on the U.S. deployments, that this buildup is the biggest U.S. military buildup in the region since October 7th, 2023. And Biden sent a lot of firepower to the Middle East, right after the attack. So, it's significant. A very significant military buildup is happening here. And of course, this comes amid the heavy U.S. bombing campaign in Yemen, which Trump has also tied that to Iran, as we've been covering. He's blaming Iran for the Houthi attacks, even though, as any Yemen expert, or not, you don't even have to be an expert, anybody who knows a little bit about Yemen will tell you that the Houthis are not beholden to Iran. And even U.S. officials have acknowledged this, that they're unlikely to take orders from Iran. They produce their weapons domestically. So in the face of all these threats from the U.S., a senior IRGC commander warned that the U.S. has 10 bases in the region around Iran, housing about 50,000 U.S. troops. So a full-blown U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran would certainly provoke an Iranian missile attack on these bases. And then where do things escalate from there? If there's serious U.S. casualties, which, as far as I understand it, that's what the Pentagon would expect, is some serious U.S. casualties, in the thousands, then what's going to happen? Then how far will things go? So very concerning, all these movements heading in a very, very dangerous direction. All right, so the next one here, more U.S. airstrikes hit Yemen's Hodeidah, 1 civilian killed. So more U.S. airstrikes pounded Yemen on Wednesday as the U.S.'s daily bombing campaign continues with no end in sight. Yemeni Health Ministry spokesman Anis Al-Asbahi said at least 1 civilian was killed and 1 was wounded by U.S. strikes on the Red Sea port of Ras Isa in the Hodeidah province. Yemen's Saba news agency also reported U.S. airstrikes in the northern Sadr province, east of the city of Sadr. According to an Al Mayadeen correspondent, 15 U.S. strikes hit this area of Yemen. You see this picture here. This is the aftermath of the U.S. airstrike on a water facility in Hodeidah, which happened a day earlier, which I covered yesterday. And the death toll for that is up to 4. The Water Sanitation Corporation in Hodeidah condemned the U.S. attack and said that 4 of its employees were killed by the strike. Al Masirah TV reported that the attack cut off water to 50,000 Yemenis. And as I mentioned yesterday, there's a history here of the U.S. helping target water, specifically water infrastructure in Yemen, in the U.S.-backed Saudi war against the Houthis that involved just horrific bombings of all sorts of civilian infrastructure. It led to the largest cholera outbreak in modern history. And they're not out of the woods in Yemen. I know 2024 was a really bad year for cholera there. So all of this is going to exacerbate those sorts of problems in Yemen. And also on Wednesday, the Houthis, officially known as Ansar Allah, announced new attacks on U.S. warships in the Red Sea. Yahya Saree, the Houthi military spokesman, said, quote, "In retaliation to the American aggression against our country, the naval, missile, and UAV forces of our armed forces targeted enemy warships in the Red Sea, led by the U.S. aircraft carrier Truman, with a number of cruise missiles and drones in an ongoing engagement until the time of announcing this statement," end quote. So since President Trump unleashed the bombing campaign on March 15th, the U.S. military has shared virtually no details on its strikes in Yemen or the Houthi attacks on its warships. So far, there's been no indication that any U.S. ships have been hit, but the Houthis did shoot down another U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone. But again, the Pentagon, they're just not sharing any details about both the bombings and the attacks on U.S. ships. So the message from the White House about the bombing campaign has been that it's a success, despite the fact that the Houthis have shown no sign of backing down. Saree, the Houthi military spokesman, reaffirmed in his statement that these operations will not stop until the aggression against Gaza stops and the blockade on Gaza is lifted. That's what this is tied to. That is the source. That's why the Houthis announced that they were going to reimpose the blockade on Israeli shipping. It was in response to Israel's ceasefire violations. And then they started firing missiles at Israel again in response to Israel restarting its genocidal war. And they've started attacking U.S. ships in response to the U.S. bombing them again. So this is a ceasefire in Gaza, a real ceasefire, a real peace deal. That is what would bring calm to the region. All right, so the next one here, just a warning, there's some really graphic footage in this story. This is a really horrific story. Israeli strike on UN Gaza clinic kills 22, including kids. So on Wednesday, an Israeli strike hit a UN-run clinic in Jabalia, northern Gaza, killing 22 people, including at least 9 children. Among the victims was a newborn baby who was decapitated by the strike. And I saw pictures of the baby. I mean, it took me a minute. I was looking through the pictures from Reuters, from all the news agencies in Gaza for the day, and I was looking at this picture, trying to figure out exactly what I was looking at, and I realized it was a baby with no head. And then I found on Twitter videos of the baby, and I mean, just atrocities just beyond comprehension being committed daily. And this was just a particularly horrific day in Gaza, all supported by the U.S. So again, just a warning here on the video. And Israel, of course, they claim that they targeted a Hamas command and control center, but they offered no evidence for the claim. And now just look at, I'll skim through this video. This is actually a 5-minute video, and it's the hospital, the Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza in the aftermath of the strikes. These are the victims. You see these dead children on the floor here. And just to skim through quickly, I mean, again, this is just as horrific as it gets. This, I believe, is the baby or another very small child that was killed. And you see their families mourning. And I mean, this has just barely been noticed. Again, a completely U.S. supported, funded atrocity, massacre of children. And it seems like it's just barely a blip on the radar for people. And Hamas denied the Israeli claim about it being a command and control center and said that all the victims were civilians. Gaza's government media office described the attack as a heinous war crime. The media office said, quote, "We condemn in the strongest terms the continuation of the Israeli occupation's genocide against civilians and displaced people. We condemn this barbaric attack that targeted deliberately medical facilities and humanitarian areas," end quote. And the bombing of the UN clinic was one of many Israeli strikes that hit Gaza on Wednesday. Medical sources told Al Jazeera that at least 77 Palestinians were killed by Israeli attacks across the Strip since dawn.
Now we take a look at this piece from TruthStream Media, produced earlier this week.
This video is about dehumanization, which is a term that we are hearing a lot more often lately, but I feel like the context of why it's so important is missing. So I'm going to try to supply some. We'll see how this goes. Every time there's a massive shift in society from one paradigm to another paradigm, the image of who we are as beings who exist on this earth changes. There's a shift in consciousness that goes with that. From one belief system about the image of who we are to another belief system about the image of who we are in relation to our environment and each other. One of the reasons we talk about the American Revolution so much on this channel is because it marks a huge shift in consciousness. And not just here in America, but the principles of enlightenment spread. It cannot be understated that the concepts that were laid out and fought over during the American Revolution changed the entire world. We're living through another massive period of change right now. But there's a couple problems with what's going on right now that I just don't understand if people realize, because these words are just thrown around so much that they start to become kind of meaningless. They start to just go into one side of people's heads and out the other without much thought in between as to what that actually means in a practical way. So what do I mean by a consciousness shift that led to the image being changed? Before the war, in the decades leading up to the war, the people in the colonies thought of themselves as royal subjects. They were loyal, dutiful royal subjects to the British crown. After the Revolution, the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Bill of Rights, all of that, their relationship to the government as citizens was fundamentally altered. Government was completely redefined, and despite some people making what I think are really bad jokes and poor taste, we haven't gone back to that, to a monarchy system. We are no longer subjects of a crown system where our belief is there's a person who wears a crown and we call him a king. That whole image was shattered and we shifted to something else. And you had people breaking from tradition that had been going on for hundreds of years to be able to think that way. That's the consciousness shift aspect. People becoming political for the first time in the lead up, in the decades leading up to the American Revolution. Women, for example, became political. They were participating in political actions. They were organizing boycotts. They were referring to themselves as female patriots. This was not a thing before that time period. That's a consciousness shift and an image change in the way they see themselves in relation to society. The men in the colonies, who were called the lower sorts before, they were seen as very low in the unofficial caste system of the colonies. The mechanics, the people who made things, cobblers, printers, etc., right? They started arranging themselves after this time period into groups. Much like the guilds in the city of London, they were pulling up sometimes ancient symbols and they were marching through the streets. This was a whole shift in consciousness. And that attitude, by the way, all of those attitudes, but especially that last one, those shifts in consciousness, those new levels of consciousness, those new ways of seeing themselves in relation to society, helped them fit really well into the unfolding paradigm of the Industrial Revolution and what would be necessary to build out what became the United States of America, which was mostly frontier wilderness in the Wild West. See how that works? So that consciousness shift and change in the image of who they were in relation to society enabled them to go forward into the future, what became the future, the Industrial Revolution and the building out of the United States. Well, what I mean when I say dehumanization is literally the image of you as a human being and what that means in terms of your unique individual consciousness that enables you to contribute something to this reality that is unique and special only to you, that can't just be replicated by a robot or some algorithms. What's really disturbing to me lately is when you see all the art that AI is producing, right? And they have these videos of robots making sculptures now, saying that AI is going to make all the movies. And so instead of the robots and the AI replacing the jobs no one wanted, they're replacing all the creative jobs that are the things that people wish they were doing instead of the jobs that no one wanted. You know, and when you go into threads where people are arguing about this and saying it's so good because it doesn't really matter if it's AI generating the art or a human making it, there's no difference. When you follow those arguments out to their logical conclusion, what you end up with is people who say, basically, you are not special because you're human. You're not special. You're basically just an algorithm in a meat suit or something. That's what these people think. Ultimately, when taken out to its logical conclusion, that's where you end up. You end up with people who say that, you know, you're basically just doing what AI is doing. It just takes you longer. There's nothing special about you. It's the image of you being human and that humanity being special or different, you having a soul, you being unique. You, by virtue of your unique existence on this earth and all the things you've experienced, reaching inside yourself and pulling out something that only you as an individual can contribute to this world. No one else can see it through your eyes. No one else can experience that thing that you're making and sharing with others. It's not possible because there's only one you. And it's like they're trying to replace that with, no, you're nothing special. You're just an animal in a meat suit walking around that can be replaced by a robot with an algorithm. We'll just upload that. We don't understand fully consciousness or how any of it works, but we'll just go ahead and take that. We'll upload that. And that's just you repeating every word into a computer, and then it'll think like you and or something, like it'll experience like you experience, which is just not true. It's just not the case at all. While at the same time, they're trying to raise up the belief system that these AI can do all of that when it can't. I think it's complete bunk. Artists are tapping into something that I don't think machines just taking a bunch of stuff that they've been fed and programmed and just jamming it all together can really replicate. Artists have a lifetime of experiences, and they are reaching inside of themselves through the perceptions of those experiences and memories and feelings and thoughts, all of that stuff. And they are bringing something out to share that with everyone that's connected to all of those things that were only possible through that person or a group of people that get together. It's just not the same as going to a keyboard and typing in a text prompt and then having an algorithm just regurgitate something. It's just not the same at all. It's not even remotely at all just going, blah, 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 make me look like a Ghibli character, blah. Like, that's not art. I'm sorry. Like, what it produces is a picture, but it's not art. The difference is the way they tell you chicken nuggets get made, where they, like, make this, mechanically processed slop, and then they form it into a shape, and then they batter it and stuff in some factory, versus your grandmother who has a lifetime of love for you and also cooking prowess and goes into the kitchen with her bare hands and actually sits there and makes something. You know the difference. There's a difference between shoving something in your mouth so you don't starve to death and actually being nourished. But the arguments that are being made are dehumanizing, because they're saying you're really just nothing special at all. We can just replace you with a robot. We can just replace you with an algorithm. We're going to pretend like algorithms think, even though that's not what's happening at all, not even a little bit. And they're literally just bound by whatever programmer programmed them to do, whatever it programmed them to do, and whatever those people's biases are, because we just can't get away from that. It's not even possible at all, ever, because it's really just an algorithm that's putting together patterns from other things. But they're trying to make you think that's all you are as well, and that you're not a feeling, emoting being that can connect with other feeling, emoting beings in ways that we don't even talk about and that science pretends not to even remotely begin to understand. Not just, you walking around in a meat suit and you can just be replaced by an algorithm. It's this idea, though, that we aren't human, we're not special. And what are you really left with if the system tries to remove that image? You're left with the idea of yourself as what, a Westworld robot? Maybe not literally, but just some being to be programmed by a system. If they take away that image, that's what you end up with. And it doesn't bode well for whatever this future is. That's the thing. Right now we have two overarching images that are emerging of this future. One of them comes out of the World Economic Forum, which has turned into a meme essentially at this point. Basically, it's you own nothing, you live in a pod, you eat bugs, or whatever, with a VR helmet on or something, while the terms and conditions feast upon your very being. And they put out articles about how, your life doesn't have to even be meaningful. You have to be happy or anything. I mean, it's a terrible image, and I've talked about it a lot because it comes straight out of central casting. It seems like a bad dystopia screenplay.
Ursula von der Leyen. Madam President, you have been a friend.
And the other one seems to be the idea that we're going to become multi-planetary, spacefaring civilization, but we still have to dehumanize ourselves because we have to symbiotically merge ourselves with the artificial intelligence so that it doesn't squash us like bugs. So it's two different types of dehumanization moving in opposite directions. But either way, you being a human and that being special in any kind of unique way, your individualism and what makes you special as a human, concepts like a soul or anything like that.
You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, this, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will.
Just we're going to throw all that just right out the window for whatever future is chosen for the new image of whatever that's about to be. It's not appealing. The dehumanization aspect is 0% appealing, and I don't know why that would appeal to anyone. It's not cool. There's nothing really, it's not like, ooh, cyberpunk dystopia is so cool. Not really, though. If it's all dehumanizing, you know, they go out of their way spending billions of dollars because we're going to search the ends of the universe for like a scrap of life anywhere. But we don't even understand really our own lives now, here, that we're living. All kinds of stuff has been twisted up in our heads and kept from us, and science has been turned into like this bastardized joke, and we see a tiny sliver of the visible spectrum. Teensy, little itty bitty. Tiny. It's so tiny by comparison to the massive whole entire thing. And we're acting like we just know everything about that and we can just replace ourselves with algorithms now. I mean, that's just so stupid. I'm sorry. Like, it makes no sense. It really doesn't. We haven't even begun to understand ourselves. Not even a little bit in terms of what this reality is and how ways in which we interact within it. And a lot of that stuff has been obscured and occulted. And art is one of the ways in which we learn how to understand ourselves. So replacing that entire journey with a couple clicks at the mouse because you typed some text is to overlook an entire process of self-discovery towards finding out what you really are, going inside yourself and figuring all that stuff out. I mean, that's massive. We don't even understand what dreams fully are. They just throw some stuff out there, but we don't really know. We don't know so much about how our own minds work. And there's probably so much more we're capable of that has been kept from us at this point for various reasons. Control being number one on that list. And before we get to a point of really getting to fully realize or know or understand or even try to fully realize, know, or understand what that is, we're just going to dehumanize ourselves completely and say, we're just basically complicated algorithms in a meat suit or whatever. While at the same time, they're trying to act like ChatGPT might have feelings while they're discrediting our feelings as mattering at all. It makes no sense, okay? It's absurd. It's ridiculous. And I think the whole reason I'm just pointing this out is that whatever future we're going into, if that future requires us to be totally dehumanized, then it doesn't sound like a very good future. I'm sorry. Rejection. I reject both outright. There's got to be a third thing that's not this, okay? Where we have to take the image of ourselves as human beings and that mattering. And by the way, they've been working on it for decades, taking us down a peg. They've been working on it for a long time. Started with Darwin in the modern era when they really separated. They're like, you're not made in God's image. You're a monkey. You're just evolved from a monkey. We're just floating around on a dead rock in space and nothing fucking matters. And when they did that, that's when they really started to attack that idea. And it really has been a downhill slide from there to the now you're just a clump of cells and whatever. I mean, you know, as much as they can, right? Dehumanize as much as they can. And then say, well, art doesn't even matter. Let's just have some algorithms do it. And with the dehumanization, there's also been this systematic destruction of empathy. It's just being completely, I mean, by the time you have the White House, by the time you have the official White House account sending out Chat GPT generated Ghibli art of ICE arresting crying people, I mean, it's just so, it's become such a mockery of everything that even remotely matters. Society has become a full-on mockery, and I just don't know why people are lining up to be desecrated by it. It's like instead of trying to understand what a human being is and what a human being is actually capable of, they're just gonna try and replace it with a cheap ersatz copy.
Ding-a-ling Shoe Shine gives you the brightest shine you've ever seen.
And I don't know why it's not soundly being rejected by us all. I think it's a travesty. And the hubris that surrounds that of pretending to understand things that people obviously do not know anything about it's always the downfall. That hubris is always the downfall. And it will be again, if that's the plan. This isn't going to succeed. It's not even following the proper formula. It's as if it's being done purposefully to fail. I just think people need to realize that they're trying to shift the image. Everyone focused on the term the Great Reset but it didn't really strike people like exactly what is it they're trying to talk about with that. And a lot of it has to do with changing how we see ourselves in relation to this reality, but in a way that will make us even less human and even more programmable. Terrible idea. I vote no. I don't just vote no. I reject it entirely. I 100% reject this and will not be participating in it. I refuse to see myself as an algorithm in a meat suit or whatever stupid, ridiculous nonsense they're about to push. But that's the thing. The future depends on people believing this. They need at least a critical mass of people to believe it. It won't work if people don't believe it. So they need to get at least a critical mass of people to buy in and take that perception on into their minds so they can then project that out as their perceptional realities in mass. That's what they need, or it will fail. This is why you have so much censorship and control of the narrative. They have to crack down and try to control those things so that they can try to force people onto the belief track.
If this narrative of care for the next generation fails, this narrative of care, we risk depending into self-serving and short-sighted behaviors that undermine collective progress.
This has been done different ways throughout history. I mean, the Spanish Inquisition is one notable way in which they tried to do this in the past.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition!
And now we're in a new, supposedly more humanistic era of technology and progress. So instead, they're going to do it in this digital way. But it's the same idea, trying to force us all into this new image and get us to take that on and believe it and put faith into it and trust into it, because that's how everything runs. It all runs on belief and trust. That's why you just got done seeing all of the trust in every major institution get tanked in the last 5 years in a very specific, systematic way globally.
Up to now, I kept thinking that everything science did was good. My training, I suppose. Now I'm not so sure.
You saw that because you need to do that before you can shift everybody to like the new thing. That's why that's being done. There's lots of different arguments for the insane immigration policies, which have been referred to as an experiment.
This happened by design, not accident. Policies were reformed deliberately to liberalise immigration. Brexit was used for that purpose, to turn Britain into a one-nation experiment in open borders.
But one of the side effects is to take very entrenched cultures and smash them together to try and force both cultures to lose their cultural programming. That's another aspect of this dehumanization. Same goes with all the identity politics fighting that's been happening and trying to delete words from the vernacular, like we're going to delete the concept of a woman, we're going to delete masculinity, we're going to delete a bunch of concepts. I mean, all of these things that you have seen, if you think about what I'm saying in this video.
The political oppression of autocratic governments. Governments that deal swiftly and ruthlessly with those who dare to champion political liberty and freedom of expression.
This is a theory that puts all of these things together as to why all of that is actually happening in the background. Like, what is the real reason for all of this? It's to take us out of a reality that we are in and put us into a new reality where we have a new consciousness, a new image. That is the purpose of all of this stuff. If it's not the purpose of all of it, it's definitely the side effect. So either way, you end up at the same outcome. And that's what I'm talking about. But why go get on? It's like getting off of one Titanic to get on just a new high-tech like spaceship Titanic, though. Why would we do that? If the requirement is to dehumanize yourself so you could see yourself as something else, but the something else you see yourself as is basically a programmable Westworld robot that's so worthless it could be replaced by literal hardware or an algorithm, what is the point? You're not saving anything. That's not consciousness expansion. That's not expanding anything. That's actually just desecrating the last scraps of humanity and then just ending everything. I mean, you might as well have, might as well go the way of the dinosaurs or whatever, right? So what is even the point? What would even be the point? And while they've got everybody arguing with each other over all these little details about each other, if you go all the way down to the base of who we are, the very last base image that we all share in common is that we are human beings. We're human. All those other details we might not have in common, but the one detail we do all have in common, every single one of us, every single one of you listening to me, is that you're human. Humanity is linked to many interconnected concepts. Inherent rights being one of those concepts that's very important. And there's people out there who are trying very hard right now to get AI to have the same rights as you, but it's really just about you not having rights and you not being human anymore. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be told what I'm going to be by people who have ulterior motives for telling me what that is, that are probably not in my best interest at all. If you're not human, then it doesn't matter if we engineer you into something else, because it doesn't matter, because your humanity is not sacred or important, and pretty soon they're going to try and take that concept away from you altogether.
Humans are now hackable animals.
This is the reason they keep bringing out that Yuval Harari guy, or whatever his name is, that dude.
We can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms.
They keep bringing him out because he says all this stuff about how you're not going to be human anymore. They're going to own you and own your data and own your life.
The whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will. And nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over.
He's coming out speaking the language of control for the controllers that want to control. I mean, that's why they keep giving him a podium to speak. That's why they want you to believe him. You don't have to believe him. You don't have to. Just saying, there's no laws that say you do. There's no reality in which you must. And unless they're going to start tea and cake or deathing people.
That's what it would be. Tea and cake or death. Tea and cake or death.
In some Inquisition-style situation right now, there's no reason why we are required to believe them.
2 statements concerning this chair. First, I know it will hold me up. Second, well, I believe it will hold me up. Which statement is correct? The first. I know that chair will hold me up because it's a good, strong chair. We wouldn't have it here in the laboratory if it weren't, but I don't believe it. Now I'm believing in the chair. I'm trusting myself to it. If a doctor should tell you that you have cancer and that if he doesn't operate, you're doomed to die, how do you believe in him? By agreeing with his diagnosis? No. You truly believe in the doctor when you let him operate, when you submit yourself to him.
But it's just the idea that that is the image that we're being given. It feels more contrived. Doesn't make me want to go into that timeline. Except for this somehow feels even more fake. Whatever that future is that they're trying to put out. That's a crap image, and it's a suck world, and it sounds like every dystopia I've pretty much any science fiction, like the bad ones, it sounds like that's the bad ones. They always have to dehumanize people to get them to go live in whatever that is. Because that's how it works. It's too ridiculous to take seriously, all of these cognitively dissident chunks that keep getting thrown at us. It's just it's too silly. I refuse to take that bag of absurdity on as a reality. So I think we can go to places that are absolutely incredible and amazing. And I don't think it requires any of this nonsense. And I think that's one of the biggest secrets that's being kept from everyone.
Well, you're too late. There's really nothing left to explore.
Instead of doing that, we're just going to say, let's all just be robots and go live in the, super dystopia where we take all the dystopia and we put it into a blender and we mix it all together and then turn that into some AI slop screenplay we can all go live in. And I don't know about you, but I'm not going to do it. John Adams had a quote forgotten by historians. They don't talk about it ever. But the revolution was effected before the war commenced. The revolution was in the hearts and minds of the people. This radical change in the principles, opinions, sentiments, and affections of the people was the real American Revolution. Because it happens in your mind first. Everything that happens there first.
to solve the puzzle.
I still don't understand the play.
Wait till they do the alien disclosure where the disclosure is you're the alien. Wait till that happens, because I bet that's coming. Because then you're not human, right? You're an alien.
I don't play him as an alien, actually. I play him as a metaphor. That's my interpretation.
Metaphor for what?
I don't know yet. We don't pin it down.
Now, let's take a look at some highlights from AM Wake Up from this week. Make sure to support and share their show to keep this great channel going. Share the show. Share the show. Share the show.
Share the fucking show.
Let's do a rewrap. Let's invite our first guest, and then we'll do the videos. Let's get Charlie in here. We got Charlie Robinson, and let's.
Hello.
Morning. Guten Morgen, Charles.
Good morning to everybody. I see Steve's out today. What does he have on the agenda?
So Steve is out. Steve is making his way to the Third Eye Carnival in Portland, Tennessee. So he's on the road again, Willie Nelson style.
Yeah, I'll be seeing him on Friday. I'll be there. Hope to see the rest of you savages out there as well. Be a good time. You know, we've done it before. We did it in Pueblo, Colorado, and the turnout was fantastic. The vibe is very high, among other things. And I'm excited for the weekend. It'll be fun.
Yes, it is. It's honestly geared up for a lot of good stuff. You're going to be there, obviously, Sam Tripoli.
Yep.
The comedian extraordinaire, New Yorker, Sam Tripoli is going to be there. I mean, my goodness, Ryan Christian, Last American Vagabond. We've got a whole slew of people there, of course. You know, the stuff is going out there. But and what better place to pick than Portland, Tennessee? I believe it's something like 15 to 18 acre property that's just geared up for camping. There's a stage there, so everyone's going to be rocking out. There's going to be music. Of course, Teal is going to be there with some food, pasta. The Great Pasta is going to be there making food. Hopefully he's making actual pasta. So we'll have a lot of that stuff going on there, which is pretty dope. So yeah, folks, if you can make it out, tickets are still available. You can find them, the AM Wake Up Telegram. You can find it on the AM Wake Up Rumble, Rockfin, all that. All the links are posted. So you can find it there. Charlie, can you, you know what, for those who don't know, of course, Charlie is, you've been on the show before. You're not a stranger. Charlie is into, this is his realm. We're going to be talking. I want to touch on news today, so I have a great person to speak on some things about Israel. Of course, a lot of fuckery and foolery going on in the Middle East. A lot of stuff in our government as well. But Charlie, can you tell people what angle do you come with when it comes to politics, geopolitics, etc.?
Oh, my starting position is that the government hates your guts and wants you dead. And I think that once you come to that realization, and that's your starting position, then a lot of this makes more sense. So I'm not on the red team. I'm not on the blue team. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I'm the MC of the largest anarchist conference in the world for the last 2 years. So my policy is that they're all criminals. It's just a matter of degree. And I don't cheer for any of these team sports because it's all manipulated horseshit. But I do love humanity, and I think that there's a lot of us being held hostage by these maniacs, and I think that we are being suppressed because of them. And should they, take the boot off of our throat, we would thrive in a way that they could not handle. So it's all about keeping us down so that we don't rise up and challenge them. It's all about keeping us dependent on the state, because as long as we're dependent on the state, they remain relevant. The minute we don't need them anymore, they go away. They lose their power, they lose their reason for being, and it's a lot harder to control all of us. So I think my position is get yourself to a place where you are not dependent on the government to the extent that you can be. I understand that the system's kind of created a web where we're all kind of stuck in it a little bit, but get yourself extracted. Start planning, making moves outside of the system. Do not be, don't consume their mainstream media garbage. Don't allow the banking system to control you. Be very paranoid about any politicians offering to come and save you. That's usually the precursor to some atrocity that will wind up happening. And anytime somebody tells you to trust the plan and sit in the corner and do nothing and wait for the cavalry to come and that the white hats are in control, you know that that's a scam. So I'm about self-determination. I'm about people being proactive. I'm about people saying fuck the government in every way, shape, and form, and coming together as human beings and building outside of the system, which is the reason why I'm passionate about the concept of anarchism and voluntarism and any of those. Those are the good isms. I don't like the other isms that are brought to you by the state.
Yes, no, brought to you by the government. Those isms are awful. Natural, man-made isms, positive.
Yeah, and exactly. It's all about intent, right? It always depends on what your intent is. I want us to thrive. I want us to be in a world that is that makes you feel optimistic in the morning when you wake up and doesn't feel like it's crushing your soul. And And I think that's by design. I think a lot of the soul crushing, jobs out there, or the way you're treated by the state or by your boss or whatever, is designed to make you, to break your spirit, and to put you in a position where a very low vibrational state of mind, where you're focused on survival and not focused on thriving. So that's why I really think, I mean, I know Steve's been going on and on about this, obviously, because it's his event, but these live events are crucial. They're so important for people to get together. And this because they don't want you to do it. When during COVID, they shut down the bars and restaurants and any of the social gathering places. They put 2x4s across basketball hoops. They arrested you if you tried to go surfing. They don't want you outside. They don't want you interacting with other people, because you might get together and conspire and figure out, hey, this is all nonsense, and this, we're being played here. So for these live events, to the extent that you can swing it, financially or time wise, go to them. Go to them when they come to your area. Or if you're somebody that doesn't need to wait for them to come to your area, you can get on a plane and go do that. You're not going to regret it. I'll tell you that much, because you're going to meet people. You'll recharge your batteries. You'll feel like, okay, not everybody's, out to get me. There's a lot of good people out there, and you build that network and that community, and then take that with you when you go home, and use that to sort of fuel you until you get to the next event. That's why I've been out in Acapulco, Mexico, on 5 different occasions. It's my favorite week out of the year, because I get to meet people. I get to remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing, why it's important. And then you also have this knowing that you're not alone, that there's other people out there that think like you think, and maybe they've got some ideas on how to do things differently. And it's a great, it's great to get around those people and have those human connections. It's one thing that we do this online, and it's great that we have the opportunity to do that. And we should, of course, use this technology to our advantage. But the live events are, it connects you to people in a different way, in a way that doing this online can't do it. So I encourage people to go and, take a vacation day, get out there on Friday. What's the worst that can happen? You spend a weekend, with some cool people, listening to comedians talk. I mean, come on, this is great. It's going to be a fantastic weekend. And I'm excited to meet everybody that's going to be there.
That's awesome. No, ditto, and ditto. I think it's going to be great. Doing things in person. I mean, the first time I met you was the 9/11 event with Billy Ray Valentine and the whole crew, of course, Don Jeffries, all those guys. And it was like, hearing somebody is one thing, but seeing them, getting, to talk to them, maybe ask questions, network, build, that's a whole different thing. So to have a weekend of that is just, that's got to be, that's what the system doesn't want. They want us to be in isolated chambers. They want us to be eating the bugs. Yes, they don't want us to be free out there, touching things, talking, So very true. Concur.
Yeah. That was good to see you in New York too. That was a fun event. I mean, for what we did the night before that was that Tony Arterburn and Billy Ray Valentine and I went to dinner down in lower, in like Wall Street area. Right. And then after we got done, Billy Ray gave us a walking tour, a guided walking tour at midnight around Ground Zero.
Yeah,
he was like, "This is where the Twin Towers were. This is where Building 7 was. Planes, come in this direction. This is where So it was spooky, to be honest. I mean, it made it kind of better that we were doing it late at night. And we were just wandering around, and to get that tour of what, of where that was such an important place in American history, and to be down there. Now, I'd been to New York before that, and I'd seen the Twin Towers, and I'd been in that area, but I don't live in New York, so I don't really know. I get turned around, you don't know where east and west and north, when you're in the middle of the city, sometimes there's buildings everywhere. It's like, I don't even know what direction is up, but to have Billy Ray kind of say, to walk us all around, and you could see the then the new monuments that they've got, obviously the One World Trade Center looks like a gigantic syringe, which is disconcerting. And then you see the black cubes, the water that falls into those water features that they've made. And it's like, oh, if you're just like some tourist there, you're like, oh, this is amazing. This is beautiful. And then but us conspiracy theorists are like, black cube of Saturn, like we're immediately calling out all this stuff, all this symbolic, so it's one of those things where for Tony and I don't think we'll ever forget that night, because we got to see, we got a walking tour of history, like the way you would go to, I don't know, some like some Civil War battlefield, and you can see all the hills. You're in Virginia someplace, and they're like, well, this is where, the Confederacy was on this side and the Union was on this side. And you're like, oh, this is crazy. Like, whoa. I mean, I wonder what was going through their heads when this was happening. Same thing when we did that tour around New York City. I was like, so like you look up and you go, okay, well, this is where the people were jumping off the buildings. And you go, oh my God, this is horrible. And so, and it's a heavy, I mean, the more you think about it, it's a heavy vibe. You think how many people died right in that area where you are, and the confusion of it, and how it changed the world in the aftermath of that. It's powerful to get out there and have that. And then, of course, the next day we did the presentation and all day, and that was fantastic. So yeah, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Those live events are important.
Yeah, no, it was a great time for sure. For sure. So, let's kick off the AM Wake Up. So I think we're off to a nice start. Let's do a little jokey jokes. And this is from the one and only Steve. He sent this my way, wanted to share with everybody. I think everybody will appreciate it. Let me cue it up. And this is the usual AM Wake Up, returnee. This is coming from Ryan Long, so let's check it out.
That Epstein's client list is going to be released this week, but as the owner of Epstein's penis enlargement clinic, I need to clarify they're talking about Jeffrey Epstein's client list, not me, David Epstein of David Epstein's penis enlargement clinic. And honestly, I'm begging the media, please be more specific about your coverage. It's just inconsiderate. Everyone's calling me frantically. They're saying, you said the hog enlargement was confidential. This is going to ruin me. Apparently, some politicians are on both client lists, making it more confusing. But for now, I can assure you, my wiener enlargement client list is in fact staying sealed, and not for lack of trying, by the way, on their end. Since I had a file on one of my computers called Epstein's client list, I come into work and find some dude broke into my office, armed, grabs my computer saying, I'm taking this for the Patriots. I said, I don't know why the Patriots are going to want to know whose pieces juiced up. Then when I called the police, the government sent more goons that tried to burn the whole place down. I'm like, guys, I'm a different Epstein, please. Now, because of this whole thing, I have to have 2 armed guards of my own, obviously not the same ones that were guarding the other Epstein. Bottom line is I'm begging everyone, just please check to make sure you are getting the right Epstein's client list. Thank you. Well, many of you probably...
Very nice. Yes, Ryan's a funny dude. A lot of quick shorts, a lot of funny shorts, relevant shorts. So we got the David Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein confusion.
I'm sure David Epstein was up to no good as well. Something tells me. Something tells me.
Yes, no, that yes, something special about that name. But let's let's get on to some funky news. Let's do a little I think you'd like this. This is this one is from Roseanne. And this was a couple of years ago, but this is also from Steve. Just wanted to get your take on this, Charlie. Let's see what you think. Let me share the screen. It's not up here. Okay, so what do you think of this here? Roseanne making a comment. Specifically, and I'll read the caption, Roseanne claims that the Muslim Brotherhood controls our media, not the Jews.
Well, there's a lot of conversation going on about Israel today. That's for sure.
All bullshit. All 100% Muslim Brotherhood bullshit. That's who controls our media, not the Jews. The Muslim Brotherhood controls our media.
Really?
And that's why what I said and why I was fired.
Well, there's a lot of conversation going on about Israel today. That's That's for sure.
All bullshit. All 100% Muslim Brotherhood bullshit. That's who controls our media, not the Jews. The Muslim Brotherhood controls our media.
Really?
And that's why what I said and why I was fired.
Yeah. That's the funniest joke Roseanne's told in a while.
What's funny about it, Charlie? Why is that funny to you?
Oh, well, now we've had Roseanne on Union of the Unwanted. She was very
Yes.
nice to me. She's a friend of Mel K. Mel sent her my book and she said some nice things to me. So,
Nice.
but she's 150,000% wrong on this one, or she's 6 million% wrong on this one, I should say.
Yes.
She, the Muslim Brotherhood. Oh yeah, all of those Abduls in the media. I know they've got to put a stop to it. I tell you right now, if only we could get the Muslims out of the media, then that would change things. Well, she's obviously, well, first of all, she has a dog in this fight because she's Jewish. Okay.
Right.
So the idea that you're going to get somebody who's Jewish to admit that Jews run the media is hilarious, because they'll do it when they say, of course we run the media. They'll say it to each other. Yeah, we run the media. But when you say it, you're an anti-Semite. When you correctly lay out the well-documented map of Jews in positions of power inside the media, there's no Abduls on that list. Okay. There aren't any. It's all Bergs and Steens and Witzes and all that stuff. That's what it is.
And Itch and Steen, yeah, correct. No, there's no Mahmoud, there's no Abdullah, there's no, anything like that. It's usually leaning in one direction. And I mean, when you look at the news today, who's getting deported and who's getting taken and who's getting arrested for criticizing, those Arab countries that are, controlling our government, that Arab APAC. I mean, I'm sorry. Wait, APAC is American is,
The A stands for Arabs, don't you know? The A in APAC stands for Arab. Yeah.
Yes, of course. I forgot that part. I should have known better, but of course it's those pesky Arabs. So no, I think, Roseanne's a comedian, of course. She, everyone's entitled to their opinion. She has said it was Jews before, but now she's saying it's Arabs, Jews. It is what it is. By the way, this is the same Roseanne that made that song Daddy's Back, where she had the braids. Y'all remember this? She had the yeah. So well, on stage with the wigger. I forgot his name, but he's that dude.
Tom McDonald.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it would be funny if it wasn't so cringy, but it was actually kind of perfect though, if you think about it, to just have her. One of my favorite memes is the Sopranos. I tone. Hey, if all I'm saying is, if the I in APAC stood for Italians, that there'd be mass arrests going on. You know what I mean? They'd be being investigated for being a terrorist organization.
Exactly. Well, why is this being? Everything's about manifestation. When you see something, it becomes real. When you think something, it becomes real. So when you see a plane destroyed day after day after day after day, that reality sets in to where that becomes a norm. And then, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't fly. And then a bunch of people don't fly. And then flights get cut. And then problem solved. Problem, reaction, solution. Easy. And it solves itself. And so here's an actual, here's a report on what we just saw on the plane. Federal authorities on Sunday were investigating the fiery crash of a small plane into a suburban Minneapolis home that killed all aboard and engulfed the house in flames. That's fucked up. The Sokota TBM-7 plane crashed in Brooklyn Park around 12:20 p.m. Saturday. The Federal Aviation Administration said the aircraft departed Des Moines International Airport and was headed to Anoka County Blaine Airport in Minneapolis, according to the agency. There were no survivors in the plane, Brooklyn Park Fire Chief Sean Conway said Saturday. Conway said he did not know how many people were on the plane or their identities. All residents of the house were safe, he said. The plane was registered to U.S. Bank executive Terry Dolan, the company confirmed Sunday. Very interesting. I'm sure somebody out there would find this very relevant, that the plane was registered to U.S. Bank executive Terry Dolan, the company confirmed Sunday. At this time, the medical examiner's office has not been able to confirm whether he was on board, but we believe he was, company spokesperson Jeffrey Shellman told USA Today. Our thoughts and prayers are with him, his family and friends, and anyone who may have been affected by yesterday's tragic incident. Dolan was named chief administrator. Dolan was named chief administration officer of U.S. Bancorp in 2023, according to the company's website. Okay, so the very interesting U.S. Bancorp 2023 chief administration officer. Okay, what else? Tim Walz, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, our favorite, said in a social media post he was closely monitoring the situation and was grateful to the first responders answering the call. Yeah, so there's that.
Wow. Yeah, again, like maybe nothing, but when you've got bank executives in airplanes going down, you have to ask, was he part of an investigation team? Maybe.
You're right.
I mean, was he on the flight, first of all? And if yes, then was he a good guy or a bad guy?
Yes,
He's a high-ranking banker, which by default makes him a bad guy. But was he investigating the bank? Did he recently go? This is where my little conspiratorial tinfoil hatted brain goes immediately. What was he doing? Was he showing up with all the evidence to get on this plane and fly into Minneapolis with all your evidence and let's get to the bottom of this 9/11 style, Rumsfeld style, grab it all and meet me in the conference room and don't worry about that missile that's gonna coming screaming into the Pentagon. So I instantly start asking questions when it's a bank executive like that. That's something that we'll just have to see. We'll have to see who was on the flight with him, but and maybe it's nothing. Like, to be fair, maybe it's nothing. But as Wilford Brimley's character in The Firm says, I get paid to be suspicious when I got nothing to be suspicious about. And when I see banking executives in private jets that just magically go down, my question is, was it an organic situation? Was there something else that was behind the scenes?
Yeah. No, exactly. It's you never know. And the thing with jumping to conclusions sometimes is that shit bites you in the booty. So you take the news as it comes. So what I do on Eyes and Ears, my show, it's like, reading anything legal that you read, any lawful paperwork, code, statute, whatever. You start at the purpose. You start at the definitions. You start at the beginning. You need to know the context of a thing. Who plays what role? Because person means something different in this code as opposed to this code. Right. Driver actually means something here. So it's like, what are we looking at? So when you see that a bank administration's exec was on a plane, he's got something tied into that smells of fuckery. However, it could be something legit. Who knows? Only time will tell, right? However, we do know we never get a straight answer from NASA. So let's share this next one. I'm sure you heard about the stranded astronauts and all this bullshit that was going on. Yeah. They're back. And of course, they're here to give their first interview. Remember when the moon landing guys gave their first interview, that spooky, weird interview? Yeah. Remember that shit?
Oh, I do remember that, because I've described it as a hostage situation. The three guys who had just accomplished the greatest feat in human history, sitting at that desk, at that table there, and they looked like they wanted to be anywhere else but there. You've got Buzz Aldrin's playing with his pen. Neil Armstrong looks like he wants to swallow a Beretta. They're all, Michael Collins is plotting how he's going to just become an alcoholic for the rest of his life. Buzz Aldrin. I mean, I pulled that up many times as there's no. I'm not saying this is evidence of anything necessarily. I'm just asking you to use the common sense part of your brain. If you had just come back from doing the most amazing thing in the history of mankind, would that be your reaction? The answer is no, of course not. And also, how come when they got out of the capsule, they were all clean shaven?
Yeah. No, it's all Freemasons, and they set up Tranquility Lodge on the moon for those interested. So there is a Masonic lodge on the moon set up by those Masons for those occultists who are curious. But yes, they did land, and everybody looked super sus during that interview. But, you know, times change, Charlie. Okay, the moon landing, all this stuff. Okay, here's the real deal with the real astronauts who were stuck in Elon Musk got them out, of course, our Lord and Savior. So here's a touch on the interview. Let's see what, and it's on Fox News. Okay,
so you know it's good.
Yes, exactly. You know it's for reals when it's coming from Fox News.
Exclusive, right? Yes. We're going to watch that this morning. It's going to be on America's Newsroom from 9 to 11 this morning. He interviewed Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, those two veteran NASA astronauts. They're also retired U.S. Navy test pilots, and they share their reactions to learning that they would be in space longer than expected.
All right, Charlie. So look, he's smiling. Okay, Buzz Aldrin looked sad. Okay. That was a bad interview. Look at this. He's happy, dude. He's cheery. Hey, we're all good.
I got saved.
Exactly.
Here's a little clip that Bill gave to our show.
When you found out you were not coming home, what was your first thought?
You know, my first thought was we just got to pivot, right? So if this was the destiny, if our spacecraft was going to go home based on decisions made here, and we were going to be up there till February, I was like, okay, let's make the best of it. We planned, we trained that we'd be there for some part of a time. So we were ready to just jump into it and take on the tasks that were given to us.
It's not about me. It's not about my feelings. It's about what this human spaceflight program is about. It's our national goals. And I have to wrap my mind around what does our nation need out of me right now? Did I think about not being there for my daughter's high school year? Of course. But compartmentalize, we've trained them to be resilient. My daughter and my family, we talk about these things. We talked about the fact that there's no given. This is a test flight. We don't know what's going to happen. We might not be back in 8 days or whatever the plan was. Yeah, certainly deal with the personal side of it, but I can't let that interfere with what I'm called to do at the moment.
I think that last piece was really impressive. I would be pretty upset after they left me there and they weren't properly communicating with the astronauts as well, but they're so upbeat. And I hope we learn in the interview what communication was given to them time for time. Did they promise them that they were going to get them out a lot sooner? What ended up happening?
It's all theater.
How about the question, is space even real, my nigga?
I mean, totally.
This niggas, the pressures. What was communication like? I mean, you were up, but nigga, how about the fact that this bitch hair stays like this and it doesn't fucking wave like zero gravity? How about that?
The best videos of that are the ones where they speed them up to like 2 or 3 times speed, and you see everybody else moving around, but you see her hair just stays the same way. This is fake. This is all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And I think people believe that it's like, well, there's part of it that's bullshit. The entire thing is fake.
Yeah. The whole thing is rotten.
They're all, as you mentioned, it's a Freemasonic. It's always NASA and Freemasonry, Satanism have been the focal point. I mean, NASA, obviously, we don't need to rehash this. I know this audience knows it, but the origins of NASA in and of itself, the creations of it are completely suspect, filled with Nazis, occultism, and all that stuff. Not to mention being, one of the largest money washing operations ever, with $50+ million a day going to NASA, and we could. We could bring Don Pettit back into this and talk about, I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. It's just that we destroyed the technology, and it's a painful process to build it back. No, No.
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 That's not an answer.
No.
That is not an
You
acceptable
never
answer.
fucking went. You never
No.
got out of the Van Allen radiation belt. You never did any of this stuff. It's all a lie. They contradict themselves in their Orion promo videos. They talk about how this region of space is extremely dangerous. We have the Van Allen radiation belt. We have to figure out a way to the shielding of Orion will be put to the test. We need to solve these problems before we go through the Van Allen radiation belt. It's like, no. You've done it 14 times. You've done it 7 times there and 7 times back. And those astronauts came back alive. So please explain to me how you have to figure out the shielding now when you said that you did it 50 years ago. So when you flew to the moon in a Volkswagen Beetle. I mean, stop. The whole thing is insulting to my intelligence. I won't stand for it. These retards that come back with the hairspray and all that stuff, Mark Kelly and his twin brother and all these sketchy people, it's all fraud. It's all fraud.
Command. How little motherfucking self-reflection do you have to take that fucking job because of the title alone? Seriously, this is a low intelligence person. I don't give a fuck what she's trusted with. Our fucking okay. When it comes to IQs, our government is always mid. Like, it sucks. They're the dumbest fucking people running the show ever.
But she surfs, Corey, and she's got a decent ass. That's what we were told. So she's fine.
All right. So if you want to talk about politician ass, Lauren Boebert has like the fucking monopoly on that shit currently.
She should be Secretary of Defense. Secretary of these nuts.
So I sent, just to point this out, I sent my book and a list of actual documents that we really need on Kennedy to all these people on the fucking on this Kennedy review board shit.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I sent Massey.
I'm sure they'll be getting right back to
you. And I actually had a fucking cop friend of mine in Florida deliver a book in person to Anna Paulina Luna in her office in Seminole.
Really?
Yeah. Who the fuck knows nothing's gonna come of it, because these fucking so these people have like the answers in their fucking hand, and yet they go and they interview jerk-offs like fucking Jefferson Morley and Matt Crumpton. Fuck you. Like these people are so fake. They have no intention on getting the truth to anything. They're just going to continue to move the pieces around the board.
Yeah, no. We're going to drive this towards the foreign policy end, because everybody's at play here. We got Indy. I'm trying to so I muted you. I'm trying to unmute you because there's an echo. Let's try it again. Whoa.
How about now?
You're good. I got an echo from you though.
Echo from me. How about now?
Let's see.
Check. Hold up. Let me mute you. We'll come back to Indy. But Corey, okay, so yeah, Corey, real quick before we go into the Israel thing, Roseanne said, I don't know if you caught that, but Roseanne said that America is basically it's controlled by Arabs. It's not a Jewish conspiracy.
Media.
It's the Muslim Brotherhood. It's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think anybody who spreads propaganda like that should be locked in a cage.
Okay, so it's propaganda. It's not real. It's fake news then?
It's fake news. It's complete fake news. Like,
yeah.
They have run the show since they killed Kennedy here in America. And prior to that, hell, you could articulate that this one group has been behind every goddamn war, every horrific terrorist attack, everything leading up to the modern era. And then they want to blame it on Arabs who've been victims of these fucking people for goddamn how long? Give me a fucking break. This is like when you beat your wife and then blame her for it. It's like, this is unbelievable shit that we're seeing. And the whole world's just going along with it. Like, are these people intentionally looking away, or are they just fucking knuckle draggers? Like, what's the deal here?
I wonder if the whole world is going along with it, though, because it seems like there's a segment of the population who recognizes this, but it's outside of our little U.S. media echo chamber where we don't really hear it quite as much. And every now and then you'll see a march against what's going on in Gaza, and 1 million people will show up, and you'll be like, holy shit. Like we were told in our media, it happened in London. They all marched, like right by the BBC. BBC pretends like they don't see anything. So there are people out there that are aware of this, but unfortunately maybe not enough, or maybe the media slant on it makes us feel like it isn't happening. I mean, it's disgusting when you're rounding up college students that are protesting and saying, oh, what we're going to do now is we're going to deport them. Oh, would you deport them when they were protesting against masks and vaccines? Only when they're protesting against Israel. Oh, I get it. Now I understand. Voltaire was right. Voltaire was right. You know.
No,
this is the group who's in
1000%.
charge.
Charlie here, speaking on what you just, and Indy, you're good. You should be good, right? You good?
I don't know. Can you hear me? Are we good? Hi, everybody.
You're good, baby.
Yeah,
we're nice. All right. Yeah, it's StreamYard messed with my audio settings. Of course, they always do that. So I had to go and fix that. Now we're good. Good morning, everyone. Corey, good to see you. Charlie, good to hang with you. Big fan. You know, we're good buds. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for everything you do.
So here, folks, we got David Friedman, former U.S. ambassador to Israel under Trump, praised the administration for jailing and deporting critics of Israel during a conference on combating anti-Semitism in Jerusalem. We're not going to convince them, he said, but we can deport them, jail them, make their lives miserable, cut off their funding, and that's what the Trump administration is doing for the first time. So here's this nigga. Let's hear what he has to say, and then we'll kind of jump in here. So this is him.
Hundreds of millions of dollars to the most elite, but at the same time, the most anti-Semitic universities on campus. We have begun deporting illegal aliens who hate Jews and advocate for the destruction of Israel.
Before we keep going, I mean, look at this guy. Look at this. Just look at him. What team do you think he plays on?
I can already tell I'm going to disagree with this guy just by looking at him.
we don't align politically, bro. I just seeing you, I know we don't align. But let's keep going.
We have, and this is a bigger point, because when you think about all the people who are in the business of fighting anti-Semitism, there are many, many NGOs, there are many organizations, there are many people who commit their lives to it, and they're all very good people. And
the business of fighting anti-Semitism. I like how he said that.
The business, yes. The money making, the racketeering behind it, you mean? The money making behind it?
Intentions. But a government can do in 2 months more than any organization can do in its lifetime. And so when we talk about the importance of a bipartisan fight against anti-Semitism, which of course I endorse, and I, as my predecessor said,
not bipartisan, it's a uniparty.
Why do you say that, Indy?
What do you mean? Because they're all on the same side. What's bipartisan about it?
But we've got Republicans and Democrats. I mean, didn't Trump call Chuck Schumer Palestinian? So isn't there a dichotomy?
He also made fun of Zelensky, but that's all theater, as Charlie would be the first to tell you. You know, this is just theater for the uninitiated. You know, it's WWE. Literally, he's in the WWE Hall of Fame for kayfabe and for being the heel. So he's playing the heel, and he's playing it well. He's pissing a lot of people off, for sure.
Reminds me of Carlin saying, you know, when they say bipartisan, it means an extra huge ass fucking coming your way.
That's right. Just means double size, the double size dildo. That's all.
Right.
So
provided by Rabbi Shmuley.
But yeah, I mean, you know, the universal bipartisan support for Israel is only because if you don't universally bipartisan support Israel, we're going to spend $25 million on your opponent to make sure that there is a universal Israel supporting in Congress, and they can fuck off. Ask Cori Bush, ask Jamal Bowman. Just in 2024, these guys spent an unprecedented amount of money that they had never spent before. They decided now's the time and we're going to take it over. They own 3/4 of our Congress. They own the White House. They own a percentage of the Supreme Court. I am Jewish, and it's fucking embarrassing. It's beyond infuriating that they're doing all of this in the name of a religion that I was raised on and bastardizing the entire fucking thing for corporate gain, for land theft.
Yeah. It's gross, but not surprising.
It's nutty.
How they do
nutty. And so all this, Tim Dillon, let me play another clip here. Tim Dillon made a comment about the what I would consider, unlawful taking, kidnapping, unlawful arrest, unlawful search and seizure, etc. of the the student here. So let's pull this up. Want to get everyone's take on this as well.
This is the Turkish woman at Tufts University from the other day.
Yes, Tufts. Yep.
We covered this extensively last night on How Do We Miss That?
Nice. Yep. So here's Tim Dillon's take on that as well.
Is this being done for America or for Israel? I mean, this is a fair question. Is the United States government now just taking edicts and orders from Israel? I think it's a fair question to ask. Does anyone feel safer with this woman off the streets? Is this the American government's? Is this what people voted for when they elected Trump, is to have a country taking orders from Israel? I don't think so. And now, I'm sure me and this woman would disagree on lots of things.
So even Tim Dillon, it's like bleeding over. So at what point, my question to this is always, what's the end game? It's almost like, okay, so clearly we're seeing Israeli fuck-ups day to day, including the stories I'm about to pull up. What is the end goal? We're still moving forward as a government in sending them money. We're still moving forward as a government in fucking up the Middle East. We're still on the agenda for the 7 nations. We're now getting involved in Somalia and Sudan some more. Don't forget those 2 African countries where Boko Haram is fucking things up. It is what it is. What is the end goal, though? What do y'all think? I mean, we know what it is, but it's like, is there any stopping this shit? People are waking up daily, but what's happening?
Charlie?
You've got to sell it first. You've got to go through the motions of the. They took the babies out of the incubator and left them on the floor to die, or I've this yellow cake uranium in this tube, or they found aluminum tubes, or, they have to sell it. And in order to sell it properly, you cannot have people poking holes in the story. So this is the preemptive taking care of anybody that would speak out about it, compromising the alternative media, installing the mainstream alternative media as a fail-safe to make sure that the messages get echoed that you want or suppress the ones that you don't want, rounding up dissidents on the street, making sure that they don't have a voice in this. This is the sales pitch before we're going to get to the part where they say Iran attacked Israel in an unprovoked attack, or whatever the bullshit story will be. They're prepping the battlefield right now, the media battlefield, by taking out anybody that will talk against this, because it's coming and they know they're going to need to sell it. Whether we buy it, I mean, we're not going to buy it, obviously, but whether the general public buys it or not, we'll see. But they're already clamping down on anybody that's speaking out against specifically Israel, because Israel intends to be doing some things that you will be rightly critical of. And so they cannot have you talking out against them. So this is a preemptive move. This is before the sales pitch for the war, which is coming. And then ultimately the war, which will be a false flag that will be pinned on Iran with support from Russia, of course, and probably the Chinese and whoever else they want to round up into this. And so get ready for the show. It's disgusting, of course, and Tim Dillon's right on this, and Tim knows what's going on.
I would say also, not only is it on behalf of Israel, but back it out even further. This looks like exactly Club of Rome stuff. When you see the Greenland and Panama Canal and Canada stuff in pair with what's happening there, how do you not?
Yeah. It all falls in together. Corey?
All right. So
here we go. Folks, here we go.
Break it down. I got my notepad.
Let me make this really fucking clear. Zionism, going back to 1895, is a plot to take over the world. These fucking Jews want the world to themselves. And we're in the early stages of them attempting to accomplish that. They can't do it without destroying the West first. Removing all the strong powers from the globe is, well, that's actually not step one. We're at like step 5, 6. All right. But this is the ultimate end game. And all the political fucking charades that goes on in the middle is nothing more than masking that. So
I feel bad for, I also have to say this, because much like we are Americans that are very much against the behavior of our government, there's a segment in Israel that are Israelis that are very much against the behavior of their government as well. And they're going to get roped into a huge problem that it's not going to be their fault. It's going to be their problem to deal with, because Iran will retaliate against Israel in a big way. And a lot of people are going to get wiped out in a war like this, and a lot of people that are against it. And so I don't know that it's a universal. I don't know that everyone in Israel is universally on the same side here. I think there's a segment that is very much against what's happening, but it's not going to matter.
They end up just being pawns in a larger game.
Yeah, they don't have the power. They could be against it. They can say this isn't right. This isn't what Judaism is about. This isn't what we're about. This isn't what we don't like this. We don't have problems with these people, whatever. It's not going to matter, because it's going to be much like us. We're going to be screaming, we're Americans, but we don't think like the American empire. We don't want 1,000 military bases everywhere. And they go, no, but you're an American. You're the problem. You go, no, I get it. America is the problem here, but we're not signing off on all of our empire's behavior, much as I think a lot of people inside of Israel are not signing off on the Netanyahu behavior. I mean, I'm always blown away, like seriously blown away, with some of the headlines that Haaretz puts out, because you read it and you go, holy shit. Like, if I said that, I'm an anti-Semite immediately, right? But when they say it, it kind of, I can't believe how I don't want to say honest their media is, because that would be an overstatement, but how from time to time the headline is Benjamin Netanyahu has got to go. He's a bloodthirsty tyrant who is murdering children. And you're like, shit, that's a hell of a headline. You know what I mean? Like, thanks for saying it. I'm just a little bit surprised that you are. So I'm very fearful of this, man. I mean, I think we've been alive long enough to watch America create these wars, create enemies, manufacture enemies, 19 Arab hijackers, or, they're all in caves in Afghanistan, or, we've got to go into Iraq and get them there before they get us. I mean, we've watched how they drum up support for these wars, and it's going to happen again with a war against Iran. And unfortunately, I think the trigger that will get American support for it will be the same trigger that got America's support for the nonsense in Afghanistan and Iraq. And that will be a massive false flag attack on America by Iran. It won't actually be by Iran, of course, we know that, but it will be blamed on them in order to get the American people to support endless wars, a continuation of wars in the Middle East, but for us to have blind allegiance to Israel and to give the president the green light to do whatever that he needs to do to flatten that country.
And I would say also yes, and they're going to use the drones possibly to do that. Remember, we had the drone stuff last year. Possibly they were already starting to throw the blame. They used Jeff Van Drew to blame Iran and China and pin it on both of them, so they could basically pick from either one. But it's an interesting point that you made about the Israelis that are speaking out against Netanyahu, because also the Americans that are speaking out against all of this anti-Semitism bullshit that's going on here, like me and Max Blumenthal, and God, there's not enough of us, I'll tell you right now. But we are all going to eventually likely be marginalized, taken care of, and like Greg says, I look forward to meeting you all in the camp in Greenland. So I'll see you there.
Can we make the camps in Panama where it's warmer? Because I just don't love cold weather, man.
I'm with you.
Put me in a camp. I don't want to be in Greenland.
I'm getting old, so over 50s, we got to go south.
Yeah,
I've got an idea for camps, y'all. It's warm, okay, so you don't have to worry about the weather. It's tropical, okay? And you can be there along with the rest of those dirty Palestinians, okay? Israeli Mossad asks African countries to take Palestinians from Gaza, okay?
Yep. Somalia.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Miloukowski tasked Israel's Mossad Foreign Intelligence Agency with finding countries that would agree to receive large numbers of Palestinians displaced from the Gaza Strip, two Israeli officials tell Axios. Why it matters? President Trump's proposal to remove all 2 million Palestinians from Gaza to rebuild the enclave hasn't gone anywhere. But Netanyahu is also looking for ways to relocate large numbers of Palestinians, potentially to countries thousands of miles away, because you don't want them close to fucking Israel.
He's not looking to relocate them. He's looking to relocate them 6 feet underground is where he's looking to relocate them.
Absolutely. Whenever they talk about being resettled in the East, that's a euphemism for as soon as this train gets out of eyesight, we're murdering every single person on that train. You know what I mean? Like, they're not being resettled anywhere. They're being taken away from here, and then whatever happens to them when you're no longer paying attention. So
welcome back to the show, everybody. Craig Poster Jardula filling in. I'm back. Here hanging out for my man Steve Poikinen, Slow News Day guy. He's currently on assignment on the road heading to the Third Eye Carnival, and that's what this week is all about. It's all just about a build-up to this amazing event, and I've been to many events over the last several years, but I can't wait for this event, man. I mean, I'm just so jazzed about it. I've recently been very under the weather, trying to get my health straight. I'm sure you're all heard, Steve has said many times on the show, my mother unfortunately had a bad stroke 5 months ago. So I'm back in sunny South Florida. You can see the sun coming in, hanging out, taking care of her. But man, it's I got chills right now, even doing the show today for Steve while he's trucking across the country to get there. And really, to tell you the truth, I was thinking a lot about it when I was looking at the Tesla protest. Holy cow. Yesterday I had on Jason Burmis on my show with Matt Weinglass, and we kind of talked about what was going on, and then did a little brief history, the forgotten history of who Elon is, because it's just wild to me to see a bunch of Trump MAGA people, Americans, inside a Tesla with a Make America Great Again hat on. I mean, literally just last year, I drove a Tesla. He drove through the Tesla protest over the weekend. That's awesome. Just literally, though, you saw those people. They were the anti-15-minute city people, right? They were the anti-Fourth Industrial Revolution Great Reset people. They didn't want anything to do with the technocrats. And now they've not only just capitulated towards it, they're praising it. They're praising out there. Oh, it's a great car. It's an American car. Elon, the Neuralink guy, he's our hero. And the same old shit from the shit libs out there. I said it before the other day. I think there's a couple of people out there on the interwebs that always say that to them, some of the most annoying people out there are black women, right? No, for me, it's old, white, liberal women, like lib shit libs. I mean, those to me are the most annoying people in the world. But, lefty women are awesome. And I know a lot of them. They're not libtards. But they were out there, too, again, yelling Nazi and whatnot. We got a little clip of it. Let's play it and then take a look at it, guys. Thank you so much. All the ways to help the show. Steve, can you use some help right now? He's putting this whole event on right now. He does have a lot of help. And that's great. If you don't know, I'll be showing up and doing the food. I'm cooking the food, y'all. Talk to Texas Slim. We got a lot of beef from the Beef Initiative coming in. Some hard R barbecue sauce. Working with the Mennonites, baby. The Mennonites and some of the Amish to get some great organic butter and vegetables. And we'll have a little bit of everything to accommodate everybody out there. If there's kids there, I got a peanut butter, banana, and honey sandwich. Of course, I got some jelly. We're going to have some short ribs, some sirloin caps, the whole 9 yards. Now, this dude you see here on the ground, I met this dude in Chicago for the DNC protest. He is one of those guys who's just looking to go out there, conservative radio of sorts. I don't know his name. I don't know if he's part of the mega media, which is just not media. It's like when Steve says whistleblower, not whistleblower. But I met that dude in the orange cap, and he just goes out there looking to just exploit any situation of any dumb shit lib he can. Let's take a look at this clip over here, and then we'll get to it, guys. Iain, wake up. Thanks for watching.
This is the Tesla protest in New York City. In New York, we got the Tesla dealership down here in the meatpacking industry, bro, where I used to go to nightclubs and rail lines as a young 15-year-old in New York. And now I'm here to buy my first car. There's a line? Is this everyone in line to buy a car right now?
No, they're in line to find Jesus so they can get to heaven.
What's everyone doing here?
Protesting Elon Musk.
What is it? Because like there's new features in the car they don't like, or what's the? Wait, do you know where the entrance is?
Entrance.
Yeah. How did I get in there?
You want to go inside it?
Yeah.
You gotta ask a cop or something.
It's a whole party in support of the self-driving is finally here. What's going through your mind?
I'm just watching these people dance.
We love self-driving. Yeah, we love it all the way. I'm cruising. What do you think is worse, that he makes the cars in America or that they're electric? Excuse me? I just want to say you're really beautiful, and if you're protesting, you're way too pretty to be here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Are you protesting?
I'm just stopping by. But
You're just stopping by. Yeah. What about him do you not like?
Wait, am I going to be videoed right now?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I mean, I think he's a fascist.
Yeah, but should we really be giving gorillas in Botswana condoms? What's your favorite feature of the Tesla? Hi. All right, I'm trying to buy a car. This is a problem when you don't go in disguise. Yeah, it's harassment. You're harassing me, bro. It's against the law, bro. You're a joke. Get out of my face, bro. Get out of my face, bro. Yeah, he's harassing me. He's cool.
I am a real police officer.
Yeah.
With a firearm.
So harassment's illegal.
He's allowed to be.
I'm allowed to be. You're not allowed to be, right? You're not allowed to stalk people. What do you have against electric cars?
He smells like alcohol.
No, you're stopping people buying electric cars right now.
I'm protesting you because you're doing this for ego as opposed to for America, and that sucks.
Do you like that his factory is in America?
Do you like that you're a fucking prick?
What? I'm just asking if you like the fact that his factory is in America.
He got $80 billion in government aid.
Yeah.
So I'd rather he built them offshore and didn't get the $80 billion.
He got $80 billion in government aid, and I just got AIDS, bro. You know, you wouldn't hear that with shit in my mouth. Oh, what's going on over here? Can I get a heck yeah?
Heck yeah.
It's on pegging.
Wait, pegging like fucking someone in the ass?
Yeah.
Well, no, have you tried?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, okay.
By the federal workers who he has traumatized.
Guys, Tesla shares are down 30%. Tesla shares are down 30%. It's a good time to short and get some options and get some W's. Guys, I'm gonna have to get a job. All the pots and pans made me wonder if they might be better suited in a rock band or in the kitchen. If you know what it's like to wake up with your trust down 30% overnight, I couldn't help but wonder if they understood the true extent of their property destruction. I'm gonna have to get a job! Should we have tax credits for electric vehicles? Should we have tax credits for electric vehicles? All right, I got you. Thanks, bro. Shout out to the police, keeping me safe. Guys, they don't believe in tax credits for electric vehicles here at the Tesla. What'd you say?
You're an elitist asshole. Yes. Out of here. Keep it friendly, right?
No one wants to have a reasonable conversation. Crackhead, come here. I love.
Way. Let's have sex with you.
Yeah, no, I don't want to fuck him. I don't fuck white guys. I'm allergic to white guys. What the fuck do you want?
Do you believe in tax credits for electric vehicles?
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you!
Is my girlfriend? Yes. Get a close-up shot. Yeah. Whites, blacks. We're all here. Blacks are struggling on the ground. Get out of my face. This is a tutorial car on what to do if you see a Tesla in the wild.
We have to make him aware he cannot interfere in government and in our lives by dismantling government, because of his wealth.
Who has more money, the Democrats or the Republicans?
In terms of individuals or the party?
The party.
I would say with Elon Musk, it's the Republicans.
Well, you know that the Democrats spent twice as much as the Republicans did in the last election?
I don't believe that's true. You have that much money, and you're changing elections by supporting certain candidates and offering vast amounts of money to people.
No, but if
he
the
put $250 billion into Trump's
250 billion.
250 billion.
Y'all defended the fort. Let's go. Stock prices are up. Trust fund is up. Thanks to NYPD. Let's go. We're up. We're living. How's dating in New York City?
I've been celibate for a while now. I don't.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What informed that decision?
Just kind of got fed up with men and the misogyny and the hookup culture here is super crazy.
One thing I know for reals, man, if you're here on a Saturday, you ain't day trading and getting prepared for Monday to check your technical charts. Did you have fun though?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last time I was at a protest, it didn't turn out too well.
What happened?
I got arrested.
Really?
Yeah.
What were you protesting?
There was a Trump rally near my school. I was counter protesting with my friends, and we got arrested.
Okay, cool. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, sure, totally.
You look back on it fondly?
No.
I do love the police, but I'm sorry that happened.
Oh, you love the police. You look like a type of person that would love the police. Yeah.
Am I attractive?
No. Sorry. A little Aryan, I think. The blue eyes are super.
To everyone watching today, my heart goes out to you.
You know, Gordon, I wanted to bring you on today, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, Gordon Dimmick's in the Haas. He's across the pond over there hanging on out. Dude, I always love talking to you. And after the last time we had a show together, I said, I got to do more shows with you where we're not necessarily talking about Assange. You know, Assange news happens. Everybody's like, call Gordy. But I want to talk to you about other things. And I think this is a great show to talk about because as we're playing that video, now that particular one, that was the New York protest. Yesterday on my show, I played, I think it was St. Petersburg, Florida, which had a lot more counter protest. But I just want to know what you make of this. I don't know if you know this, Gordon. I think you do know. I was inviting you to come on my morning show. I was supposed to do the morning show this morning for WBAI New York, which is a radio show. And it's a call-in show. I do it once a week. And it's always something I've always wanted to do. You know, very different than the audience we're talking today. Today's audience, obviously, AM Wake Up, very educated, does their homework. If you say Larry Ellison, they know who he is. If you say Sam Altman, they know who he is. When you're speaking to the normies out there, they don't necessarily know what's going on. And I'm trying to have conversations on that level. But when I look at a protest like this, I don't know, man. I say to myself, and I just want to hear your thoughts, that the globalists, the elites, the ruling class, they got us. I mean, I was reading some points from Sun Tzu the other day, The Art of War and Keep a People Divided. You see people out there, you know, in the St. Petersburg or the event with a MAGA hat driving a Tesla when they couldn't stand electronic cars a year ago. What's it like over there in England? What's going on as far as the everyday normie people out there? And what do you see moving forward?
It's just as divided, Pastor. It's just as bad. It's not as overtly crazy as it is, for want of a better word, in America. We're looking at America at the moment, sort of like thinking your 250th birthday is coming up. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like you're having a midlife crisis. And I wish these people would get as excited and as activated about your country and my country obviously being complicit in a genocide as they do about some electric cars. But that's by design. I've been saying for a long time that, and I don't mean this, I mean it in the literal sense of the word, Americans are retarded. And I don't mean that badly. I mean literally held back. They're being held back by their own government. This is obviously divide and rule and misinformation campaign, disinformation campaign on their own people. And we've got it over here as well, speaking to people on the streets and speaking to family members and people who really, get their information from the BBC and Sky. Even though if you ask them, did the BBC and Sky always tell the truth? They'll say, oh, hell no. But that's where they get their information from. And it's really hard to punch through. And whenever anybody does punch through, with a big platform, they get smeared and slandered, and obviously that muddies the waters. And they keep anybody with a smaller platform subdued and suppressed. So there's no way to fight through the propaganda. But we are making a headway, clearly, because they are cracking down on free speech and people actually telling the truth in a massive way, as you've experienced and as have I.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, is it fair then necessarily, Gordon, to call them retards? I mean, because
I'm not calling. No,
I don't mean, but I don't mean that in a negative sense. But I'm saying with the fact that anybody who gets any momentum, I mean, the atmosphere we're working. Because let me tell you something. You hit it on the nose. And the media situation, independent media situation, is worse than ever before. They've taken cheerleaders now. I mean, I never thought that there would be a level of hero worshiping like I saw with Barack Obama. And the Trump people have said, oh, really? Hold my beer.
Yeah.
And now we have a complete system. We're on X today, right? I'm sure I think we are, but we can't be on YouTube. YouTube's still playing the same game. You've experienced the censorship. Is it fair that these people are kind of being held back in a way? I mean, I know it's easy to say, hey, listen, you got to go out there and you got to seek other means to get your information. But it like I said when I brought you on, it seems like the ruling class has us so divided. And you look at this Tesla protest and you're like, holy shit, they got us arguing about nothing out there.
It literally is just, I'm looking on and it's like, these are people that loved Tesla not long ago when, they were all, we need to save the planet and we need to go green and we need to go battery power instead of fossil fuel, which is, to me, it's crazy because those minerals for that battery still have to come from somewhere. Yeah. They still have to, and they're not coming from your country. And I suspect that this is one of the reasons why Greenland is suddenly in the conversation, because there's lots of those rare minerals under Greenland, as well as obviously the strategic importance of it. And it really is quite amazing the way the powers that be can divide people and get them arguing over. Well, I mean, this is just a theatre, isn't it? I don't know what it achieves at all. When there's so many other things that they could be doing that actually would make a difference. But this is why people are kept down and misinformed so badly. I was at a party recently and the subject of America came up and the person was like, they're all stupid. I'm like, they're not all stupid over there in America. It's by design. It's from the top down. You can't blame people if they're being, as I say over here, kept in the dark and treated like mushrooms by fed on bullshit all day long.
Yeah.
If you don't know, was it Julian? You mentioned Julian Assange. Thanks very much, by the way. I always love coming on and speaking to you guys as well. If you don't know what the truth is, you're like a ship sailing in the dark, trying to reach a port that you don't even know where it is. There's no chance of you even heading in the right direction. There's no chance of you even getting there by luck. And this is the situation we're in now. And obviously this goes back, this decades in the making. You can go back to Bill Casey in the 1981 and the Reagan with the disinformation and Mockingbird. And it used to be the case where with Mockingbird, obviously it was all done by subterfuge. They would plant, CIA and spooks in the media to try and muddy the waters. Now they're given $1 million contracts on CNN and they're right there out there in the it's quite amazing that
they're wearing their badges. They're wearing their CIA pins as they come on TV. Like, Brennan, what his job was. Ryan, talking to Gordon about this election, but everybody welcome back.
Thanks for letting me know you brought me on, brother. Hey, good morning.
Hey, it's T-Lab Tuesday, man. What a better day for me to return to the show as a co-host, as a special guest host, as Steve is on assignment trucking across the country. It's your birthday soon. It's my birthday soon.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Happy birthday, Steve, wherever he is out there partying up. And Gordon, good to see you, brother. Good to chat.
See you too.
I was listening to what you're saying off before we jumped on. There's a few things you're saying that I'm sure we could get into, like right up my alley right now. The retard point is interesting. I know what you're saying in regard to like
it's not an insult.
No, I get it. They're held back. But what I was going to say is that it's interesting. But I'm sure you use that word to get people, thinking about it. I imagine, right? Because there's other word. But what's interesting though is that I think it's the same anywhere. I would agree. Like Caitlin Johnstone often points out that the U.S. population is the most propagandized on the planet. Yeah. I agree with that. But would you say that it's somewhat similar, like in regard to like the level of that, like being mentally, emotionally, information-wise held back in regards in the UK, for example, or France? Like, do you see it the same way, or is it like a completely different field?
Yeah, it's not completely different. It's just the case that the propaganda over here is slicker. It's less overt. It's less in your face. The BBC have obviously had nearly 100 years to get this absolutely squeaky clean and running smoothly, whereas with the American media, it tends to be more overtly in your face, and sides get flipped really, really easy over in America, and the waters get muddied. For instance, with this Tesla thing, Pastor's just said 5 minutes ago these people love Tesla, and now all of a sudden they're protesting against them, and for what end I don't know.
Well, I can tell you, actually, I find this interesting because there's, as always, the most important manipulations are rooted in something that is real, right? And so I was just reading more on this morning. Like, obviously, I agree with the general premise. Like, it's actually absurd that with what's going on in the world, even for arson and vandalism, like federal crime levels, still, I find it insulting that we're pivoting to that, even within what's going on with this in this country, even under the guise of what you want to call domestic terrorism. That's still on the lower scale what we're dealing with. So it's insane that they're pivoting to that. But one of the things I'm seeing is there's this kind of feeling on the I guess just the left sense. I think there's a lot more nuance to that left-right paradigm even in this country today, but who are feeling that Tesla represents like Musk's bankrolled funding of what we're seeing take place. Now, I avoid getting into like the fascist X, Y, and Z, even though there's clear elements to that, because that taps into partisan mentality. But I think we all agree what they're doing is wild. And it's not a left-right thing. I think it's a stepping stone of what they've been doing forever, but they're just overhauling the entire country, removing, ignoring constitutional rights. But so you can see that they may find that, which I think they're incorrect in making it about Tesla in particular, but going after that will somehow undermine his ability to do so. I think that's ridiculous. It's not the way that you should do that. But you understand maybe the misplaced logic there. And at the same time, you can see that the manipulation from their side is to try to hide the larger picture, or that they're deporting I guess eventually on the borderline about to be Americans, but people who are here legally and so on. But I think the whole thing is so fascinating because there is, in some cases, like what they believe well-placed intention, right? They think they're stopping this bad entity from overtaking the country. The other side thinks they're stopping the other side from overtaking the country, and both of them are effectively helping them continue to take over the country. It's insane.
I said before that I never saw this level of hero worshiping with Barack Obama. I never thought I would. And the Trump people are saying, "Hold my beer." It's just ridiculous, going over the top. But when I often think, and listen, I guess that I'm being more critical right now to the Trump counter protesters, because those same lefty people, which a lot of them I knew, I was in the streets with them when I started. I came out of the Bernie Sanders Diner, which is an activist group. We were supporting Bernie Sanders. Me and Fiorella, we were in the streets with teachers, nurses, workers, the whole nine yards. So we understood. We kind of understood where they were. They wouldn't let us talk about Epstein around the diner because it hurt Hillary Clinton. You're helping Donald Trump by talking about Epstein.
So it never stops.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. We were going over one of our videos yesterday. I think we have one video, 500,000 views. Our second video, this is before YouTube pulled the plug on us, like close to 400,000 views. And in that video, we kind of cite you. We cite your work. Hey, I don't know who this guy, the last American vagabond, is, but look at this video he made. It was great. And now we're here today talking. But what I often think about back to digress to the protest itself. And I often think about, like, if I had to use words to describe the people that they do pick to get out there, the words I come up with are impulsive, reactionary, low informed. It seems like the ruling class understands that they got to get the worst of the worst, the most retarded in our society out there, pitted against each other. And it doesn't really show the signs of what the bigger picture looks like. Do you guys have any sense behind the scenes when you get out there, do some of your activist work, talk to people out there? I mean, I know we're going to talk to a lot of people at the Third Eye Carnival this weekend. And by the way, when I'm looking at solutions, when I was looking at the St. Petersburg protest, I said, I'd like to take 5 guys from the Trump side, 5 guys from the anti-Elon side, take them for dinner after, put them in a set of, an environment where it's not so hostile, break bread and talk to them. And that's what I think this Third Eye Carnival is all about. I don't know if we'll necessarily get more normies out there, but do you guys see any signs out there that, hey, man, this is just what they're showing us and blasting up all over the TV while they silence voices like ours who are really talking truth to power?
Yeah, I mean, the propaganda that they're putting out, it works on the lowest common denominator. So it works on the people who maybe haven't got the highest IQ or reactionary, like you say. And they only need to get, 1 in 1,000 people activated like that with their propaganda, get them on the streets, point the camera at them, and all of a sudden that's the norm and that's the mainstream and that's the way it's presented. And this is the way the narrative has been constructed. Like I say, they do it in this country, but it's much slicker. It's much less, in your face. It's more behind the scenes. And I think it's just they're better at it. But it's been working for forever. So why would they change it? I think the internet, though, has changed things over these last 10, 15 years. More and more people will be able to talk like this. And just to pick up on your end point, one of my favorite videos that I've ever seen is a Trump supporter and a Hillary supporter going at it with each other. And when they actually calmed down and had a conversation for more than 15 seconds, they actually realized, actually, we both agree with Bernie. This is going back quite a while. But as soon as people stop and talk to each other and stop talking past each other, and also stop, arguing a point, and then if they lose a point, just immediately jump onto the next argument. If we actually sit down and we have a conversation with each other, then you'll find that, actually, we agree with on 95, 98% of the things that are important to us, but that 2% that we don't agree on, that's what they keep us divided with.
Yeah. Well, and I think the crux of that point is the hero worship and the statism that drives, because I agree. I think even with divided allegiance, as it were, between, let's just say, Biden and Trump or whatever, that you can, if you actually put that aside, which that's the most difficult part, as we all know, for them to put aside that willingness to just defend no matter what, but if they can get past it, you'll find very quickly that we all seem to want to fight the same things. It's just a different lens that they put over it. Right. But what I think is that to really get past that, we have to get past that part of it. Not hope they can see beyond their hero worship, but make them realize that they don't need a hero to worship. I mean, this gets into the whole whether we should have government or not, but let's just take as a step one and ask whether we need to be, deciding some entity out there should be making decisions for our lives, but I agree though. And back to Pasta's point, I mean, I think we all seem to agree. It sounds that way, that I genuinely think that we're at a point, actually what you were saying, that, they've lost kind of, it's diminished the ability to do so, to influence people's minds. I think that's why we're seeing what's happening today. That they have effectively been very well-crafted manipulations for a very long time, right? Just large-scale social engineering projects, just the two-party illusion itself has been losing its power. I think we all see that. COVID-19, plenty of other things. And I don't know why. I mean, we can talk about more esoteric things like the shifting kind of, I always talk about Yuga cycle things, or like different kind of like, just the things that might change our consciousness level. I believe that there's something to that, or just the fact that we're just not buying it anymore. Like it's just the same repetitive step 1, 2, and 3 fake protests. Now we have to overthrow them. Like the same things keep happening. And so people just don't buy it anymore. But that's why I think this is all happening, because they need to get just to a point to where we can no longer, that even if we see what they're doing, it doesn't matter, because we're bowing to the rulers as opposed to choosing our leaders, and that's, I think it's always been that. I think it's been the rulers this entire time. We've just been manipulated to do so, but I'm pretty hopeful, to be honest. I think a lot of people are choosing to see these things. And as Pasta was highlighting, we just get this false impression or I think both of you, you get this illusion that they place where there's the left guy, the right guy, and then the Fox and the media and CNN all talk about it. And so we only see that and people think that's the majority. And so they just go, well, I can't make an effect over here because they all tell me it won't make a difference. So I'll fall in line. That right there is the biggest block, I think, to real change because people want to see it, in my opinion.